so.
Let's do it. Oh, there you go.
But why is it not showing anything?
Oh, that's live.
Yeah, but it's black.
Yeah, it's not showing
But why is
anything.
it black?
Wait a minute. Stop.
Not there.
All right.
Sorry.
Can you guys see me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Looking good.
Sorry, everybody. This live shit is pain in the butt. It does not work easily, it does not work quickly, and it does not work well. You never really know what you're getting. You never really know when it's going to go live. It takes a long time. It's weird. It's scary. But we got it. I have to do some adjustments here. I am coming in hot. This is a lot of stuff that we had to prepare for you. Sorry about the lack of whatever. Okay. So, here we go. We have quite a show today. This is really a very interesting moment in our timeline. And I will just point out to you to start with that we have received new briefings. Those briefings are very amazing. So I'm going to cut to the chase, stop the suspense right off the bat, and say that we heard it years ago and I had forgotten about this. Is there a problem? Okay. I'm very concerned about the way this is working. It's very difficult to get a live stream to work, as it turns out. Anyway, the briefing is that we are going to get 3 days without internet and without telephone. You will be able to call 911. You will be able to call other emergency services. You will not be able to use the internet. It will slow to a crawl, or maybe not even. You might be able to get your email. I don't know if you're going to be able to text people or not. But basically, it's a shutdown of the phone and the internet. And that's for 3 days. We have 4 different sources that are telling us this, and one of those 4 sources has 5 different independent sources that told him this. The timing that we're getting on when this is going to happen is anywhere from today or tomorrow. There's another window that suggests, and this is from a State Department source, the latest one that I just got, that it could be before, the 3 days could be before Good Friday. But during those 3 days, there's going to be the arrest of the bad guys. And so this is a very wonderful thing. I was not going to leak this intel because I felt that it would give the enemy an unfair advantage. Apparently, it doesn't matter if they run. Apparently, there's nowhere for them to go. So this is huge. And I did not think I was going to be able to leak this. I was planning on keeping it quiet. However, there's so many leaks going on. Obviously, what we heard now is we got authorized, an official briefing, to tell you that there's going to be this happening. Now, if you know my background, if you know who I am, David Wilcock, I am a regular on Ancient Aliens and a consulting producer. I've written 2 New York Times best-selling books. And I'm definitely one of the most visible people in the UFO community, the ancient civilizations, consciousness science, all that kind of stuff. And I, as a result of having millions of viewers and a public platform that's extending back to 1995, 25 years, I have gotten in touch with multiple insiders who are, in some cases, very highly connected people who have not spoken to anyone else. Sometimes I'm the only one who they will trust or talk to, and I get the burden or the honor of leaking this kind of information. So I know there's a lot of fear out there. I know this is a very dark time for many people, and I certainly do not want to undermine that for 1 minute. However, if you can follow with me in this talk what I'm going to be telling you, the 3 days are very exciting. If you understand what's going on, we've already made it this far. I've been telling you for 11 years that were from briefings that came from people that were working directly up with the presidential level, okay? We've been telling you for 11 years that you were going to need about 2 weeks to a month of stored food and water in your house, that you wouldn't want to go outside. I didn't know why, okay? We thought we were going to lose power, but we weren't sure. But we definitely knew about the stored food and water. We definitely knew that you'd have to stay in the house. And we also knew that during that time, arrests would be taking place. When the mafia started to get arrested in the 1970s, they had to come up with new laws to be able to arrest a criminal ring that goes outside of state lines. So that's where they got the term RICO from, R-I-C-O, which is Racketeering Influenced Corrupt Organizations Act. And what RICO does is it allows for a group of individuals who are working in different states to be arrested all at once without a pre-existing trigger that would make it obvious what was about to happen. In other words, you don't want to tip them off. You want to keep them in suspense. You don't want them to know what's going on. So what you have to do is create sealed indictments. Now, a sealed indictment is something that's very specific, and this is something we need to review today. A sealed indictment is where you have a grand jury that has been convened. Now, a grand jury can only be convened on one of three levels. It can either be county, state, or federal. But it involves high-level prosecutors who present evidence to a citizen panel, an anonymous, confidential citizens panel of jurors who hear the evidence, and this is without the accused being on trial because, of course, the accused doesn't know they're going to be arrested. And the grand jury, the citizen grand jury, decides whether there is enough evidence based on the presentation from the prosecutor to warrant an indictment. And if they get the indictment, then that means that once all of the players of this criminal enterprise have gotten their sealed indictments and the law enforcement is ready, they unseal them and they get everybody at once. Because if you don't do that, if it's like the mafia and you only get one guy, but the others know that they were part of that, they're going to flee the country, they're going to take cash, they're going to fly, they're going to do something. So that's where you get your sealed indictments from. Now, we have a lot of sealed indictments, and from what we're hearing, during those 3 days, many of these indictments will be unsealed and many people will be arrested. And this is a very, very good thing because the people we're talking about are essentially satanic. They did create this virus. That's one of the things you're going to hear again today. They didn't get it right, though. They got the contagion part right, but they didn't get the lethality. And I'm going to show you a guy who is actually just as credible, if not more so, as the head immunologist in the United States, Dr. Anthony Fauci. This guy, Dr. Michael Levitt, is literally like the Jimi Hendrix of epidemiologists, okay? And Dr. Michael Levitt is saying, what's the big deal? This thing is not that bad. It's not very dangerous. It's not going to last very long. And he actually was able to predict how many people would get sick and die in Wuhan based on the existing numbers. He was able to get it within a very, very narrow window. And so we're going to see him telling us that this is not a big deal. So I do want you to respect social distancing. I do want you to stay home. It's not as lethal as the media is making it out to be. Dr. Michael Levitt makes a very good case that this is all, a lot of it at least, is fear-mongering. Now, a lot of people die from the flu as well. More are going to die from the flu probably than coronavirus. But the problem is that coronavirus, because it's so contagious, you're getting a large number of deaths, relatively speaking, in a very short time window, which overloads the capacity of the healthcare system. The flu doesn't get everybody all at once, so there's more time for everybody to kind of pass through the system. So this is really the main issue. Now, if this were a true epidemic, if the lethality rate of this thing were, let's say, 10% or 20%, then you have a truly unbelievable disaster that is nothing like what is happening now. And we don't even want to think about the horrible decisions that would have to be made. It would probably involve mass burials. All this kind of horrible stuff would have to be done. That's not happening. The healthcare system has been tested. People are getting what they need. They're getting the care they need. They're getting, auxiliary hospitals are being set up in places like New York City. It's only really in Italy where their economy is so strapped that they've had to triage. It's very, very sad that certain people are just not being admitted in because they don't have a high enough chance of surviving. That does not happen in the US, and it probably won't, based upon how fast we're able to create these mobile hospitals and get everything going. And the military is your friend. The military is not trying to hurt anyone. They are helping with distribution of food, distribution of medicine, getting people critical care. That is what's going on right now. So the 3 days is the new briefing. This is something that I had told Elizabeth a few days ago. I was very, very excited about it, but there is no way that I was going to open my big effing mouth and be the guy who ruined disclosure for planet Earth. Believe me, I don't want that. So I was actually quite shocked when I found out that we were going to be authorized, that we were authorized to leak that intel. So when you no longer can get online and when your phone doesn't work, you got to wait 3 days, and then when the lights come back on, metaphorically speaking, even though they shouldn't be off, we're not expecting abnormalities in power. When the lights come back on, what have we been told? We've been told that every news channel and all the websites, all the television shows, they're going to have this 8-hour chunk of information. And they're going to play it 3 times a day. If you want to watch the whole thing, you got to watch 8 hours. It's going to run 8 times 3, 3 shifts a day of 8 hours. And that's all there's going to be. And this is going to be information that tells you that the planet was being run by a satanic cult. And I know it sounds crazy. It's like, well, David, this sounds like a really stupid, bad horror movie, but that's actually the way this thing is going. There are people on this planet who have been here trying to plot against us for many, many years, and they have not succeeded. They have lost decisively. If you really want to understand what's going on, I'm going to talk about some archetypes today. And one of the archetypes I'm going to talk about is the father archetype, okay? And I'm going to lay something on you here about Trump. I'm going to say that Trump is dad. On an archetypal level, Trump is dad, okay? Wow, that's pretty controversial. Well, think about it. We end up bonding with politicians as if they are family members. And so whether you like him or not, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that archetypally, Trump is America's dad. He's the guy running the country, okay? And in our own personal lives, let's try to get away from it being Trump for a second and think about what it means to have a father, okay? If Trump is dad, then a lot of people are having daddy issues right now. Really bad. I can't stand dad. Dad pisses me off. Dad makes me so angry. Frickin' all he does is this crazy, crazy stuff. And why won't he listen? Why doesn't he understand me? And oh my God, he's foul-mouthed. And oh my God, he hasn't been the best that he could be, okay? We all have projections of what we want heroes to be. And I certainly have not fit in with people's projections either. Many, many times I get criticized online. People say I have too much of an ego. People say I'm too arrogant. I think confidence is being misplaced as ego. I really do try very hard not to have an ego, and I don't overly promote myself. You can see that by virtue of the fact that in the year 2019, I really kind of took a lot of time off. I didn't really do very much. I was working on my book. I don't need to feed everybody lots of little things on social media, although I know you love that if I do. I'm sorry that I haven't been doing that. This is not about ego for me. We have had plenty of threats against our lives, against our peace, against our financial stability, and that's real. I have not stopped doing what I'm doing just because of severe hecklers, which actually did organize into a group that was trying to get our businesses shut down, trying to get everything that we do shut down. It's been a very intense battle. That battle got so heavy that I largely withdrew from public attention last year. And I'm not out there trying to sell a bunch of products all the time. I don't have things you can buy on my website like little keychains or mugs or anything. Not that that's bad, okay, but we don't have them. We've done this through your grassroots support, and we now have the Wilcock Spiritual Healing Foundation, which also is a very important part of our work that allows me to do these videos and have them sponsored. But enough of that. I want to get into the slides now because we have a lot of material to cover. So let's get going. All right, so this is part 3 of our Great Pandemic series. It's kind of a joke. It's not really a pandemic. It's just a great panic, where we're going to get into the exclusive briefings and restitution. So everybody's asking, what is really going on here? And of course, this has escalated into a biblical scale. The scope of what is going on in the news has become something that is like so heavy that people are having a really hard time with their lives right now. However, we've had some really great stuff happen here in the U.S. A bill was signed into law that allows people to get $1,200 if you make $75,000 or less a year. $1,200 that you're going to be sent by the United States Treasury. Believe it or not, they're going to mail you a check. This is going to happen sometime apparently within the next 2-3 weeks at the most. You're going to get one of those refund checks as long as you paid your taxes. You get one of those checks and it'll be, depending on what your income is, and I believe it's like up to $3,600 for a family, and they're also potentially going to do more. Now that's another thing that we heard before, that there would be some kind of payment back to the people. That is already happening. So we're going to get a lot more into that bill and how it was passed, but I also would recommend that you watch the Great Pandemic Part 2 at least, because there's a lot of material that I'm only going to touch on very briefly here that we covered in much more detail before. So one of the things, just to start this off, is, again, as I said last time, the factories in China are returning to production. This was news from March 3rd. Okay? So anybody trying to tell you China's all dead and gone, that's not true at all. China is now back up to at least 95% production, maybe more. They're basically fine now. They've gotten over this thing. They have no new cases, no new deaths. So let's just have a bit of quick review from last time, where you start to see how this might have a dark, sinister aspect to it. Prince Philip, the husband of Queen Elizabeth, the reigning monarch in the UK, in 1988 said that he wanted to be a virus. And I showed you this very disturbing picture of him. He looks like a Sith Lord in this picture. Well, here it is in The Guardian. Did I say that? Where he says, in the event that I am reincarnated, I would like to return as a deadly virus to contribute something to solving overpopulation. Now that right there is what you call the revealing of the method. Okay? They came right out. He came right out and said, I would like to contribute to solving overpopulation by being a deadly virus. Which means he supports millions or billions of people dying to combat overpopulation. So now I want to take you back again to May 24th, 2009. This was in the Sunday Times. It got taken down pretty fast. Billionaire Club in bid to curb overpopulation. America's richest people meet to discuss ways of tackling a disastrous threat. And then, of course, you look it up on the Wayback Machine. It's not there anymore. You have to go back to October 6th or before. And then the blue, rather, is when it was live, and then the 24th is when it turns into a busted link. So we're going to read a little of this again. Some of America's leading billionaires have met secretly to consider how their wealth could be used to slow the growth of the world's population. The philanthropists who attended a summit convened on the initiative of Bill Gates, the co-founder of Microsoft, and they discussed joining forces to overcome political and religious obstacles to change. Okay, let's just look at that right there. How could their wealth be used to slow the growth of the world's population, meeting in secret to overcome political and religious obstacles? So this again is very highly disturbing stuff, because a religious obstacle would indicate that people would think God wouldn't approve of you doing this. Well, how are you going to stop overpopulation? Probably by killing people. Okay, here we go. Described as the good club by one insider, how ironic that is. It includes David Rockefeller Jr., Warren Buffett, George Soros, Michael Bloomberg, and media moguls Ted Turner and Oprah Winfrey. And some of you guys gave me some shade about Oprah Winfrey the last time. Look, I don't know if Oprah was into this more or not. I did hear that she threw up at the meeting. I personally do not feel Oprah wants to kill billions of people. I think that's kind of silly based on who she is, but some people are like, oh, no, Oprah's really evil. Okay, you can have that opinion. I'm not going to share that. You can tell me why you think it's true in the comments if you want to, and I'll try to hear you out, but I personally intuitively don't feel that Oprah is an evil person. Okay. They gathered at the home of Sir Paul Nurse, a British Nobel Prize biochemist and president of the private Rockefeller University in Manhattan on May 5th. And it was so discreet that they had to keep it secret and say they were going to security briefings. So as I asked, why would this be so secret if these guys weren't planning something evil to try to reduce population, at least what we would think of as evil? Stacy Palmer, editor of the Chronicle of Philanthropy, said this summit was unprecedented. We only learned about it afterwards by accident. Normally these people are happy to talk good causes, but this is different. Maybe because they don't want to be seen as a global cabal. Oh my God. You've got to be kidding me. Some details are emerging this weekend, however. The billionaires were each given 15 minutes to present their favorite cause. Over dinner, they discussed how they might settle on an umbrella cause to harness their interests, and taking their cue from good old Bill Gates, they agreed that overpopulation was their priority. Well, isn't that nice? Another guest said there was nothing as crude as a vote, but a consensus emerged that they would back a strategy in which population growth would be tackled as a potentially disastrous environmental, social, and industrial threat. So that's what they're saying, folks. They think that we are the problem. They think that we are a disastrous threat to planet Earth. And one of the initiatives that they've had is deindustrialization. Deindustrialization was the real reason why Greta Thunberg got up there and was blasting that the governments aren't doing anything about climate change. And then you had all the cabal, deep state type people like Hillary retweeting her and saying, you go girl and get it going, we love you. Well, guess what? The carbon cap, the carbon tax that they were going to put out there in the world was intended to create these emissions goals that countries had to meet, knowing that the goals were unreasonable. And the idea was that they were going to shut down society so that if you are producing more than your carbon cap in terms of your emissions, they literally want you deindustrialized. They want to shut down all the factories. So what they're doing right now with COVID-19 is the same idea. They got the same result, which is everybody's at home and nothing is running. And we're going to talk more about that later. But I just want you to be aware that these guys have wanted the planet to be where it is now, where everybody's at home, industry is much less, it's only critical services. It is not going to last this way, okay? It's not going to last very long. It might last through another month. You know, Trump just had to extend it to the end of April. That just came in today about the idea of people, you know, not leaving the house. But during this time, when the phones go down and the internet goes down, that's when you know the big magic stuff is happening. And I am so excited about this. We hardly told anybody. We told Beth's parents. I talked to a couple very close friends who I could trust, and that was it. Until I got the word that we could leak this intel, I wasn't going to say anything about it because I do not want to screw this up. But now we know. So it is right around the corner that these guys are going to get arrested. But they did want to destroy millions of people, billions of people with a vaccine. So here we go. This is something so nightmarish, this overpopulation, that everyone in this group agreed it needs big brain answers. They need to be independent of government agencies, which are unable to head off the disaster we all see looming. Well, why would you go over governments if your tactics are ethical, and why would you want to subvert religion? Why all the secrecy? They wanted to speak rich to rich. Oh my God. Without worrying that anything they said would end up in the newspapers to paint them as an alternative world government. As I said last time, the very next year, the guy who put this thing together, Bill Gates, founder of Microsoft, spent $10 billion more on vaccines over the next decade. Plus, he already put in $4.5 billion before. So that's a total of $15 billion. And as we saw from Lyndon LaRouche, there was a couple other things I wanted to just get in here. Again, the meeting was conveyed on the initiative of the man deemed by Forbes to be the world's richest, Bill Gates. And Warren Buffett pledged $31 billion, the bulk of his fortune, to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and David Rockefeller. So let's do the math. Just between Gates and Warren Buffett alone, you got $46 billion. Now, I actually did some math on this, and I was looking at the number of people in the world who have died from COVID-19, and it's like 25,000 something, I believe. And anyway, I did the numbers. I don't remember them off the top of my head. But if you take $5 billion away for other expenses and you give these guys $41 billion to play around with this vaccine, and if, as I'm going to argue, they designed this thing, they designed the COVID-19, this is their plan. 1988, Prince Philip says, oh, I'd love to be a deadly virus to help curb the horrible problem of overpopulation. 2009, they say we got to subvert governments, we got to subvert religions. We have to find a way to get around all this pesky stuff so we can stop this terrible problem. Well, if you actually look at the idea, let's just take $41 billion as the price they spent to get this virus that comes out 10 years later. Apparently, the briefings have told us the virus did not succeed. They got it to be highly, highly contagious with this little spiky ball, right? It's highly contagious, but it is not highly lethal. And they were hoping to take the contagion of COVID-19 and then get the lethality included, but that part didn't work. Thank God. Okay? Nonetheless, this thing is very contagious, and so it's not normal that we would all have to stay in the house. It's not normal that something would spread this far. This is designed. This is not something nature would do. So if it costs them $41 billion and they have only killed 25,000 people, that means they spent $1.5 million per death. $1.5 million of their money spent on this frickin' virus to get these 25,000 or so deaths. So here's what I would propose, guys. How about you give a grant to 25,000 people who are up and coming, who have proven that they have a cool idea, something that could change the world, something that's positive, and you hand out 25,000 grants for $1.5 million. Now, are some of those people going to blow it? Are they going to have a crappy life? Yes. Are some of those people going to do something wonderful with it? I believe so. And would the percentage of the 25,000 people do something greater than whatever this thing is that they think they're getting something out of? They're not getting anything out of this. They're just screwing with everybody's head. They're screwing with our peace. They're trying to show one last time before they get defeated that they're masters of the universe, that they can control what everybody's doing. They can keep you in your house. They can keep everybody afraid. Okay? And it works. They literally are keeping everybody home. It's all shut down. But it's not that dangerous. It's not really killing that many people, as we're going to see from Michael Levitt, the Jimi Hendrix of epidemiologists, who should be respected. So yeah, I think $1.5 million per person could have been spent a lot better than on this crap. Let's go back to the slide. Besides the three conveners, the meeting was attended by Mayor Michael Bloomberg, who just ran for president, drug promoter George Soros, Peter Peterson, the genocidal advocate of government budget cuts who co-founded Blackstone Group, not the same Pete Peterson I know, former hedge fund manager Julian Robertson, former Cisco Systems chairman John Morgridge and his wife Tasha, real estate speculator Eli Broad and his wife Edith. Then we got David Rockefeller's son, David Rockefeller Jr., Ted Turner, and Oprah Winfrey. So ABC News reported that the meeting was reminiscent of the 1907 salons of America's foremost financiers held in the study of J.P. Morgan to discuss how private citizens could stop the economic panic. Now, I want to go right into this again because we got this briefing and I went forward, I took a risk to talk about something that we didn't really know exactly what was going on here, but we went with it. Charles Lieber, a Harvard, well, it's kind of becoming like Hollywood now, right? The Harvard professor who was very bizarrely connected to Wuhan and biological research, okay? Here is his arrest notice on the Department of Justice website, as I showed you last time, but I'm going to read you some new stuff now, okay? So don't say, oh, this is same old crap, same old crap. No, no, no. I got to make this a standalone product for everybody. So it says, Tuesday, January 28th, Harvard University professor and 2 Chinese nationals charged in 3 separate China-related cases. Now, it says here in August 2018, Zhao Songzheng, who was one of his students, I guess, entered the United States on a J-1 visa and conducted cancer cell research, allegedly, they always say that's what it is, at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center in Boston from September 4th to December 9th, 2018-2019. It is alleged that on December 9th, 2019, Zheng stole 21 vials of biological research, quote unquote, and attempted to smuggle them out of the United States aboard a flight destined for China. It is alleged, this is again from the Department of Justice, that initially Zheng lied to officers about the contents of his luggage, but later admitted he had stolen the vials from a lab at Beth Israel. Zheng stated that he intended to bring the vials to China to use them to conduct research in his own laboratory and publish the results under his own name. Well, here he is, everybody, probably one of the most hated people on earth once this whole thing comes out. Sorry that he has to be Asian, you know, it could be anybody, this is just what happened. But he actually did get off on bail, and so this is, the judge in Worcester released him, but that's the guy, Zhao Songzheng, there he is. And it says right here, a medical student from China who U.S. authorities say tried to smuggle cancer research material, that's not what it is, taken from a Boston hospital out of the country, has been held without bail by a judge who ruled he was a flight risk. And then it says at the bottom, he tried to smuggle vials of research specimens in a sock in his suitcase bound for China, and he was held without bail. So this was at Boston's Logan Airport. He was arrested on December 10th on a charge of making false statements. So he was apprehended on December 9th, right before the Wuhan thing got started. Now apparently, what was really in these vials was COVID-19. Yes, because they were making the stuff, okay? And he was shipping it over to Wuhan to release it, to begin this plan. And now there's been news articles, I didn't have time to get it in there, about, we'll do it in the next one, about how, in fact, a lot of really high-rolling people seem to have known something bad was going to happen to the economy, and they all cashed out really quickly before this happened, okay? So this thing could have been designed by these researchers as a designer virus. It's, again, very contagious, very unusual in that sense, released to China by people who do not have China's best interest in mind. China, as part of this international effort to defeat the deep state, has been cutting them off. And I just found out we have 29,000 people watching live. That is awesome. Thank you. And we are going to do another meditation. And I'll show you what happened to the Earth's Schumann resonance last time we did that. It was quite amazing. So, of course, going back to the slide now, we have our official debunkers like factcheck.org, which says, oh, there's no link between the Harvard scientist Charles Lieber and the coronavirus. But wait a minute. It's Wuhan. It's biological research. It's the Department of Justice arresting people. It's them getting paid under the table. And it's 21 vials of something that he's got, that he gets arrested with in the airport on December the 9th, and then starts lying to people on December the 10th. Federal investigators. Let's take this again. Zheng stole the materials from his lab at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, authorities allege. I'm reading this from the article I just showed you. Some vials contained a colleague's work he had replicated without apparently without the authorization or knowledge of the lab. They threw him under the bus. That's BS. He was possibly acting on behalf of the Chinese government, according to the FBI, which they said in an affidavit included in court documents. So, this is getting really weird, folks, because you got this guy, Zhao Songzheng, working for Harvard, working for Charles Lieber. He's got 21 vials in his sock. He's trying to smuggle it through the airport. He lies to them, and he's smuggling it into Wuhan right before the pandemic got really bad, and they actually had to do this big quarantine starting on January 22nd, okay? That's right around the time it would have been released. So he might have been one of a few couriers. They probably did it with several people, smuggled this stuff in there, you know, spread it out with drones or however the hell they did it. I don't know, okay? But it's crazy. So the briefings that we had said that the assistant was carrying COVID-19. So again, Charles Lieber, man, I'm sorry for you. I'm sorry that you caved into this and thought this depopulation agenda was a good idea. You know, he does look sad. He does look troubled and conflicted, every picture. And man, I would be too, because I would rather die than play this game. I would rather take my own life, put me on the table. You know, I would go before I would do something like this. It's unbelievable. So what the briefings also told us is that Lieber's research was financed by none other than good old wild Bill Gates himself. And isn't it interesting, after this arrest takes place, Bill Gates has mysteriously resigned on none other than Friday the 13th of March. This is the announcement right here. But now I bring you the next big thing, which is that we told you this on the last time we did our show, and the very next day, QAnon confirmed the intel. Right here in post 3896, where it says, you know, first of all, they're quoting from a paper that goes back to like 2007 or something, where the green circle is. It says, severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus as an emerging and re-emerging infection. And then they say the China virus, worth remembering, Wuhan Institute of Virology. What is the geolocation? The first biosafety level 4 lab 2015. City province origin, hot zone. What is that geographical location? And then, right after, the very day after I put this in the video that you all watched, we have the link to the exact same thing that I just showed you. And it says there, they quote from the Justice Department's own website, unbeknownst to Harvard University beginning in 2011, Lieber became a strategic scientist at Wuhan University of Technology, or what, in China, and was a contractual participant in China's Thousand Talents plan from in or about 2012 to 2017. And then they say rapid spread. Then it goes on from here. And look at what's happening, right? Does this end POTUS's economic rally? Yes. Does it end the economic gains during his administration? Yes. Does it end all of his gains on unemployment? Yes. Does it try to take away all of his platforms that he could say that he's doing a good job? Yes. Weaken his chances of winning the presidential election? Yes. Does this delay trade negotiations with the U.S. and China? Yes. Would China prefer Biden as the president? That's the question they're asking. I don't know the answer. That's what they're asking. Do they want to shelter Biden's public appearances because he's so gaffe-prone by having nobody be in crowds? Isn't that interesting? You hadn't thought of that, had you? Do they want to shelter him from being in debates? Oh, we can't debate anybody because, oh, we'd get sick. Well, think about it. Are they pushing a new revised presidential 2020 vote by mail, which is unsecure? Sure enough, that could be what it is. It's all part of the election, folks. Are they pushing a Democratic wish list of unrelated items? What is the mathematical probability that this occurs, the time bomb explodes at the exact point in time that allows for maximum damage above prior to the presidential election? Outside of the standard deviation, oh yeah, who benefits the most? Well, that would be the deep state. The Mueller investigation failed. The impeachment thing failed. Why was it critically important that impeachment had to be rushed through the House? Mainstream media, Democratic Party, Hollywood narratives have all failed. The coup failed. Democratic Party leading nominee established prior to lockdown takeover, that was Sanders. So Sanders had to be eliminated to put Biden in the front. Occam's razor simply states that any of the given set of explanations for an event occurring, the simplest one is most likely the correct one. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Oh my God, David's alt-right, David's a Trump supporter. Of course Trump is going to try to make it about himself. Of course Trump is going to try to make it about the election. Now, let's just try to be clear on this. Remember, Trump is dad, okay? Archetypally, Trump is America's dad right now. And you might not like your dad. You might not get along with your dad. You might think your dad is a real a-hole. But we also have to get along as a family. If you have somebody as the President of the United States, you have to be able to function as a country. And there is an electoral process where if you don't like who you have, then you vote for somebody else. Now, a lot of people got really upset because you had Buttigieg and Sanders and candidates that some people were getting excited about, and they all got sidelined. And wait a minute, now it's Joe Biden. So please understand that the electoral process, as I said in the last show, the big 5-hour extravaganza, the electoral process got hijacked, right? We didn't get the results from Iowa, and New Hampshire got screwed up. And if those had settled in, it probably would have crystallized around Sanders, but it didn't. They're trying to give you the same old Hillary, Podesta, deep state guy so that it's not really an election. You feel hopeless either way, right? If you don't like Trump, you're going to feel hopeless if he wins again, and you don't like Biden either, and you might even like, oh my God, am I going to push that lever? Am I going to actually say, you know? And then you got somebody like Ralph Nader who comes in and scoops up that other independent vote that, you know, is never going to be enough to win. Okay. All I'm saying is this. In the last show, I presented to you the history of something called the Alliance. It goes back, in Russia, it actually goes back 300 years. They've been trying to defeat this so-called Illuminati. We'll get into that a little more. Here in the U.S., it's been going on since the Korean War, which is from 1950 to 1953. This was when, again, American generals were forced to report their troop positions to the United Nations, and they found out that if they told the United Nations where the troops were going to go, there was an ambush and they all got killed as soon as they arrived. It was only when they started to tell the United Nations disinformation that the troops didn't show up where the troops were, but they would show up where they told them they were going to be. The ambush was there, but then there was no troops. So the American generals realized that the United Nations was actually killing off our soldiers, and they're supposed to be our allies. And this also wove in with the aerospace tycoon Howard Hughes. Now, Howard Hughes hired some couriers. Let's go over here, yeah. Howard Hughes hired female sex workers, actually, who are intelligence agents, to have sex with other people in the aerospace industry who were talking about this Illuminati. And they got them in bed. The women got them in bed. The women got them talking after they'd had sex, and they revealed that they do believe themselves to be the descendants of an extraterrestrial race going back to Atlantis. I know it sounds crazy. I know it sounds silly. They really do believe this. They don't think they're humans. They think that there's something more. They think that they're magical blood. So they're very attentive to their bloodlines, to who is in the right of succession, who was the king, who was the queen. Much of the people who are now in the so-called Illuminati believe they are the direct descendants of key families that you read in the Old Testament of the Bible. This is something I haven't really talked about before, but that is true. They believe they are Old Testament royal bloodlines that are still around. So, Howard Hughes gained a lot of information about this because he wanted to know why Hughes Aircraft was constantly being washed out by other companies that had inferior products and not as competitive prices for their bids, but yet they always got the bid and Hughes Aircraft was getting shafted. Well, it was because it's all a good old boys network and they're all working for one agenda. Okay, so he learned a lot of this and fed that information into the Alliance. The Alliance, again, was covered in a book by G. Edward Griffin called The Fearful Master. I showed you that last time. This whole story about what happened with the United Nations, it is in a book, how they were reporting these troop positions and they were getting ambushed. So, this is a lot of information, and all of that war between the Alliance and the Cabal I covered last time. I talked about how long this thing has been raging, and that there were certain things where the Alliance almost succeeded in trying to get something to happen. Eisenhower tried to invade Area 51 and did get some information back. He warned about the military-industrial complex at the end of his term. Kennedy was trying to defeat the Federal Reserve. We'll get into that again in a minute. He got assassinated. Then you have Watergate. Then you have Reagan getting shot when he wanted to tell the truth about UFOs. You have the Iran-Contra scandal in 1987, where we found out the government was dealing cocaine at the highest levels and arming terrorists, and yet somehow that went away. Then we have another one, as I talked about, with Oklahoma City bombing. and that the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building, 1995, that was blown up, actually had all these documents in it that were going to be used to arrest and destroy the Illuminati. And so they were very clever in blowing up the building where the documents were and stopping that from happening. Then 9/11, where the Pentagon was hit, was right in the office of the Naval Intelligence Operations, where they were actually planning on arresting the cabal again. So now we've had all this, 19 years since 9/11 have passed, and there's been this vicious war behind the scenes, which I first learned about in 2009 from briefings from a high-level insider, Dr. Pete Peterson. And he was telling me that he was having meetings in these sensitive or secure compartmented information facility rooms. That's SCIF, or SCIF, okay? They call it a SCIF room. It means you cannot get a cell phone call, radio waves don't go in there, they can't hear you, they can't listen to you with any surveillance equipment, whether it's satellite. I mean, they have satellites where they can shine a laser at the window of your house and listen to your conversation just by the jiggling of the glass. And it's an invisible laser, you'd never see it. So if they want to listen to you, they're going to listen to you, okay? They also, the NRO has facial recognition tracking. And, all right, I'm getting a message about microphone static. I don't really know what that is. No, we can't do that. We can't do that. It's
No, that part seems fine. I think it's a connection thing there.
So what are you actually hearing? You're hearing rustling noise, or you're hearing the buzzing when I'm talking?
It rustles when you
It's
move,
rustling?
and then can we tighten that thingy? Where's it at? Can we
It has,
lock it?
yeah, it's just,
That might be why. Maybe this needs to be tightened a little more. This part. This part.
that probably has nothing to do with it.
Needs to tighten, but this is a possibility. This one right here.
No, that's not going to work.
So when you step forward or turn,
Anytime
which
you
makes me
move,
think it's part of the
unfortunately.
receiver, just because I can see that part's not rubbing. And that's just a cord thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot we can do about it, so I'll try not to turn. All right, we're building the plane as we fly it, as they say. I'll put that down. Okay, so this whole, there's a lot going on here, folks, and it's not easy to be the guy who tells you this stuff. I get that. I'm not really having a fun time being the guy that tells you these things. I feel obligated to do it because I don't want to see these people succeed. But the alliance is a really cool thing. So in 2009, I started to find out about SCIF rooms where they're having these briefings, and the military is discussing this satanic group that's trying to kill everybody on Earth, and how can they defeat them. And Pete Peterson was brought in on that, and I was getting these very interesting pieces of information. I don't know if Pete was supposed to tell me everything that he said or not. Some of these briefings probably were not supposed to be told to me, but I got them anyway. And I was making decisions as to what to leak and what not to leak, but there have been plans to try to get this mass arrest done ever since 2009. In fact, there were various points where we thought it was going to happen very soon. And I've taken a lot of heat for that. I've been talking about mass arrests for 11 years, and I've been saying it was right around the corner. Well, now what we have is, during the Obama administration, they were going to do a military takeover. They were going to do this thing where the power gets turned off for 2 weeks, you're in your house, you can't leave, there's military outside, and they're arresting the deep state. But it was going to be a surprise, and people weren't really necessarily going to see this coming. It would have caused a great deal of fear. At the last minute, they pulled the plug on this plan because, and here's another important thing, the alliance does not have a lot of money. Let's go back to so the alliance is actually, it's a grassroots effort, believe it or not. They don't have an enormous amount of resources financially to do what they're doing. So they needed someone who could self-finance. They wanted to actually have an alliance candidate run for president, somebody who could be supportive of what they were trying to say. So there weren't very many choices. They needed somebody who had the ability to self-finance a campaign, who was not a satanic pedophile blood drinker, okay? They needed somebody who actually could find out what was really going on and be repulsed by it and want to do something about it. So they brought in Donald Trump. Before he ever decided to run, he was brought in by military friends of his. He got these briefings that lasted for 2 weeks where they showed him some really, really horrible stuff. And they convinced him to run for president and that he would be starting to tell people things that you've never heard in any campaign before, starting to really talk about what's actually happening. And so I admit that I enjoyed the debates where Trump was going after establishment candidates, because remember, it was going to be Jeb versus Hillary. Ooh, Bush versus Hillary. My God, it's so exciting, you know. No. Trump was the wild card, and so I don't agree with everything that he said publicly, of course, but if you're only paying attention to what the media is telling you, you're missing this huge thing that's going on. Because I've been getting these briefings about what was Trump really doing here, and then I start to see these briefings come out on 4chan in the beginning of the year 2017 through a source calling herself Mega Anon. I published her on October 11th, and I became friends with her. We started talking on the phone a lot, and she was talking about the idea that the reason why Trump got into office was to arrest these people, that he was working with the military and the international community to do that. It's an international effort. And then after I publicized this on October 11th, the QAnon stuff started on October 28th. And it started only 6 days after my second update from Mega Anon. So it started on the same platform originally. It went from 4chan then over to 8chan. And now 8chan, as I said last time, has been relocated, this is provable, onto the Department of Defense's own web server, which has an IP address that begins with 11.11.18. So this is very, very interesting because there's now almost 4,000 of these Q posts, and they definitely appear to be coming from the US presidential administration. And they've gone way out of their way to do what are called Q proofs. In fact, some researchers have found over 500 examples of this, where Trump will tweet something right after Q says something, and they try to get it as close together as possible in the timing, or Trump will say something that Q has already said. There's many of these examples. Trump has talked about the number 17, the 17th letter of the alphabet is Q. So the media has also spent an enormous amount of time trying to debunk the QAnon stuff, trying to say it's not true, it's not real, it doesn't matter. Anyway, a lot of you know all this, and I don't want to waste too much of your time, but I'm trying to speak to people who don't get this, okay? If you read the QAnon stuff, it is literally like the full-on conspiracy theory angle. It goes into all of the stuff that's going on with child trafficking, with Satanism, pedophilia, blood drinking, the banking elite, the establishment. It's a very, very comprehensive body of information, quite amazing in its scope and its depth and what it's telling us. And it's totally the truth. It's the real truth that you haven't been able to get before, which apparently they're getting ready to tell us now. So even if you have problems with dad, okay, if you look at the dad archetype once again, and I understand that, I can't defend everything that's happened, okay, but dad is dad, and dad is trying to do something good, even if he might be annoying you very much in other ways, okay? Dad is trying to do something good here. And so, even though you might not be too happy, I think you'll be happy with the result, which is the stopping of these people who were trying to take over the planet and kill everybody, okay? So let's talk now more about what situation we find ourselves in now. I want you to be avoiding the media fear porn and think in a practical way, because the coronavirus numbers that they're giving us are all off. I said some of this stuff last time, I'm going to get into it more now. On January 26, 2000, there was a Chinese scientific study that proved that coronavirus is targeting Asian physiology 5 times more than any other race. This is a ethno-specific virus. Chinese doctors have discovered the coronavirus is designed to attach to lung receptors that are 5 times more common in Asian males than in African or Indo-European males. Asian females also have less than half the amount of these receptors than Asian males do. Now, isn't it interesting that this text was in that article originally, and then I went back after linking to it in this video and making a really big deal out of it, and the text that I just read you was no longer in there. They edited it. But they still have other text in it that says the same thing, which I'm now going to read you from. So, 2019 COVID was reported to share the same receptor, angiotensin-converting enzyme 2, or ACE2, with SARS-CoV virus. SARS, of course, is the older pandemic. Here, based on the public database and the state-of-the-art single-cell RNA sequencing technique, we analyzed the ACE2 RNA expression profile in normal human lungs. The result indicates that the ACE2 virus receptor expression is concentrated in a small population of type 2 alveolar cells, or AT2. So only certain types of people have this, and it happens to be Asians. So this is the ACE2 receptor. This is, if this virus was man-made, which it certainly appears to be, somebody spent a lot of time and billions of dollars studying this thing, the receptor site in Asian lungs, and they found out, okay, here's the cell membrane, and there's these little pits in it that are in the ACE2 in Asians. And so they designed this thing with these little spiky proteins to be able to stick in there, and it does that preferentially. So the ACE2 distribution, this is now still on the paper as of today, is also more widespread in male donors than females. At least 5 different types of cells in male lungs express this receptor, while only 2 to 4 types of cells in female lungs express the receptor. The result is highly consistent with the epidemic investigation showing that most of the COVID-infected patients were men, 30 patients versus 11 as of January 2nd, 2020. We also noticed that the only Asian donor, male, has a much higher ACE2 expressing cell ratio than white and African American donors, 2.5% versus 0.5%. Well, if you take 0.5 and put it up to 1, that takes the 2.5 and puts it up to 5, which means, yeah, you're 500% more of these cells in Asian people. This might explain the observation that the new coronavirus pandemic and previous SARS pandemic are concentrated in the Asian area. So once again, this is sick stuff. This is what you would expect if somebody was trying to target the Chinese as part of an ongoing economic war, which is happening. The Chinese are trying to defeat the deep state folks. And so this virus was partly intended to try to crush them in this war, because apparently, as of February 19th or thereabouts, the Asians have now cut off, the Chinese have cut off the deep state's line of credit. They will not accept anything but gold as payment anymore. And this is what finally drove everything over the cliff. But it's a good thing, because it's leading to everybody getting arrested, and it's actually happening faster than we expected. So then I saw this article on March 19th, 2020, in which it says again that 80% of the victims dying from this thing are men. Interestingly enough, the coronavirus is killing far more men than women. And I'm going to read you from this article. There's the link. With more than 200,000 coronavirus cases worldwide and thousands of deaths, a striking pattern is appearing in the hardest hit countries. More men are dying than women. Nowhere is this trend more pronounced than in Italy. Men make up nearly 60% of people with confirmed cases of the virus, and more than 70% of those who have died from COVID-19. 70%, more than 70%. On the other end of the spectrum is South Korea, where about 61% of confirmed infections have been in women, not deaths, but infections. Though far fewer patients have died, the majority of fatalities, 54%, again were in men. That's in Korea. People over the age of 70 represent more than 87% of deaths in Italy. And a study of 99 patients at a hospital in Wuhan where the virus originated found that men made up 2/3 of patients, and half of all the people who were hospitalized had chronic conditions like heart disease or diabetes. More recent figures from China's Center for Disease Control, based on tens of thousands of cases, showed a strong gender breakdown of deaths, 64% male. But the figures in Italy have been even more staggering. Nearly 60% of the diagnoses have been in men, and Across the first 1697 coronavirus deaths, 71% were men and just 29% were women. In a recent study published in The Lancet, meanwhile, the figures were even higher. It found that 80% of the deaths were men and 20% were in women. The honest truth is that today we don't know why COVID-19 is more severe for men than women, or why the magnitude of the difference is greater in Italy than China. According to Sabra Klein, a professor at Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, the gendered death gap was also seen in the smaller SARS and MERS outbreaks, according to Angela Rasmussen, a virologist at Columbia University. Okay, so here's the deal. 5 times more likely to affect Asians, 80% likely to be men. That means that the numbers that you're getting from the media are wrong, because they're taking the Wuhan data and they're acting as if it's not ethno-specific, but it is, and we just proved it. So that again gets the numbers down. Most of the death rates in the countries I'm looking at, they're all around 0.003 or 4%, way below 1%. Now we're going to talk more about that kind of data. So just to allay your fear, because you're not getting confident reporting of people telling you that this is okay. You're getting all this crazy pandemic fear porn, which I don't like. So I'm trying to fight back by giving you real information here that you can find, this is not fake news, from regular news sources that are tapped into what's really going on. So let's take a look at that. The Wall Street Journal gave us some honest facts in an article they came out with recently. We'll have that link in the description soon enough. Number one, they're showing that the current charts instill fear deliberately because it says the current charts instill fear are not relevant. This chart only shows the total number of cases to date, which is no longer a relevant number. They just keep adding up the numbers and they just keep making the graph higher. But in fact, it's falling off very quickly, the actual number of cases. Number two, the number of cases per million are very small. You look over here on the right, that's the total number of cases per 1 million people. And you can see those numbers are very small. So this is way below 1%. The highest number is Italy at 778, as you can see there. And that is only 0.07%, okay, if you calculate it. The affected countries are showing regular ongoing declines. Look at this. The China coronavirus is spreading, but probably not accelerating. So you look at these different colored lines and you see, okay, let's see. Blue is China, yellow is South Korea, green is Italy, orange is Iran, and the red is the USA. And sure enough, look at what's happening. It just falls off. And so on the X graph at the bottom, you see those numbers, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. Those are the number of days, okay? And then you can see there that at the time this chart was made, everybody is going down within a month. It's pretty much almost gone within a month. There's a little spike there, as you can see, with the Chinese data on day 29, but it's not necessarily going to last. It's a bell curve. So that's the next thing. The virus follows a bell curve and it declines fast after it peaks. That's what we see right here. Number 4, the coronavirus will decline no matter what the media says. The virus is on a bell curve, as the numbers from China and South Korea point out. This thing reaches a fast peak and then declines, as viruses typically do. So look at this. You're seeing on the x-axis again the dates, and then you're seeing China on the left and South Korea on the right, okay? China gets hit and it starts to peak around January 27th, and already by the time you're less than a month later on February 21st, it's already, the bell curve has gone way the heck down. And then look at that, it starts up in South Korea around the same time, it peaks, and it drops right down again. Now here's the next thing. The virus burns off in the summer heat. If you look in these areas, it says here, this virus will likely burn off in the summer like other viruses, and I'm not going to read all this, but basically where the green areas are is where the virus is thriving. And in the red areas, like throughout Africa, there are very, very few cases of coronavirus. So this virus does not like the heat, and now that things are warming up, it's not going to do well for the virus. So whoever designed this virus, now think about this, if this was a designer virus, they knew they had to release it during the winter. And sure enough, the China thing starts right at the end of December. Zhao Songjeng was going in there as of December 9th. That's when his flight would be. And they were planning on probably releasing those vials and other vials soon afterwards. His vials were not included. If they had been, it probably would have infected a lot more people. But thank God he got stopped, and now he's been arrested. And one of the briefings we got is that we're going to be told this on a collective level. Guess what, everybody? This really sucks, and I'm sorry to tell you this, but the virus was man-made. We know who did it. It traces back to Bill Gates, to this overpopulation thing they were trying to do. That's going to be a huge pill for people to swallow. As Mega Anon said in the last show, people are going to want to give the truth back. They're not going to want the truth, because the truth is awful. Okay, but this is what's going on. Number 8 in the Wall Street Journal thing, the fatality rate is declining very quickly. And you see that here. As we have noted, children and teens are less affected. That's number 7. The fatality rate is declining. And this is the percentage of confirmed cases fatality ratio. Wuhan, Hubei, China, and China overall are the different colored lines. And you can see it just drops off to 0. Okay? Based on this data, Jin, the scientist they were interviewing, Jin suggests we should probably open up schools and public places. The numbers indicate it would be okay. More people are concerned about government actions impacting the economy than they are concerned about the actual virus. And this is confirmed by the Nobel chemist Michael Levitt, who says that this whole problem, now that we're doing social distancing, is going to end very soon. So here's one link to it. Nobel laureate predicts the U.S. will have a much faster coronavirus recovery than expected. And he's from Stanford University. Michael Levitt, here he is. He's no slouch. He won the 2013 Nobel Prize in Chemistry. So I think that means we can trust him to know what he's talking about. This story with him broke in the LA Times. And here it is. Why this Nobel laureate predicts a quicker coronavirus recovery. We're going to be fine. Other news outlets covered it as well, and you can see some examples here. Lower death rate estimates for coronavirus, especially for non-elderly, provide a glimmer of hope. Coronavirus. Nobel Prize winner predicts the U.S. will get through the crisis sooner than expected. I'm going to read to you from this one, from the actual LA Times original, which everybody was quoting from. Michael Levitt, a Nobel laureate and Stanford biophysicist, began analyzing the number of COVID-19 cases worldwide in January and correctly calculated that China would get through the worst of its coronavirus outbreak long before many health experts had predicted, and it gets better than that. He said, while many epidemiologists are warning of months or even years of massive social disruption and millions of deaths, Levitt says the data simply don't support such a dire scenario. Yeah, you saw those bell curves. It dies off really quick, especially in those areas where we're doing social distancing, which is now the whole world. What we really need, he says, is to control the panic. In the grand scheme, we're going to be fine. 3 weeks after February 1st, when he said the initial estimates, Levitt told the China Daily News that the virus's rate of growth had peaked. Levitt had predicted that the total number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in China would end up around 80,000 with about 3,250 deaths, and his forecast was remarkably accurate. As of March 16th, which is a month and a half later, China had counted a total of 80,298 cases and 3,245 deaths. I'm going to leave that up there for a minute. Notice he was only off on the death count by 5 people. That is effing amazing. And the total number of cases, he was only off by 298. Now, that's why I say this guy is the Jimi Hendrix of epidemiologists. He got it dialed in that close, within 5 deaths and within 298 of the actual cases. How did he do that? Because that's what these guys do. They study the science, they study the data. It's a bell curve. It goes up really fast, it goes down really fast. This thing is not going to, this whole 18 months thing you're seeing, it's just not true. And he's telling us not to freak out. So let's read a little more from him. The number of newly diagnosed patients has dropped to around 25 a day in China as of March 23rd, with no cases of community spread reported since Wednesday, March 18th. And now they don't have any deaths in China at all. There's no coronavirus deaths happening now. Levitt, who received the 2013 Nobel Prize in Chemistry for developing complex models of chemical systems, is seeing similar turning points in other nations, even those who did not install the draconian isolation measures that China and now much of the world has done. Levitt analyzed data from a whopping 78 countries, reporting more than 50 new cases of COVID-19 a day and sees signs of recovery in many of them. He acknowledges his figures are messy and the official case counts in many areas are too low because testing is spotty, but even with incomplete data, a consistent decline, which we're seeing, means there's some factor at work that is not just noise in the numbers. Levitt also blames the media, thank you, for causing unnecessary panic by focusing on the relentless increase in the cumulative number of cases and spotlighting celebrities who contract the virus, even though Tom Hanks, of course, said all he had was some body aches and his wife had some body aches and chills and they were tired and that's it. They were diagnosed with it, they got over it, and they were fine. There you go. By contrast, Levitt says, the flu has sickened 36 million Americans since September and killed an estimated 22,000, according to the CDC, but those deaths are largely unreported. And as I said, the only difference is this coronavirus thing just overwhelms the healthcare system because you get this big spike and a whole bunch of people all die at the same time because it's so contagious. But the actual number of deaths from the flu take place over a longer period of time because there is no sudden spike, but it's actually more. Okay, so it's just that spike, that quick spike that you got to worry about. And once you get through the spike, it's fine. And in America, we're able to keep everybody in these alternative hospitals. So, Levitt fears the public health measures that have shut down large swaths of the economy could cause their own health catastrophe as lost jobs lead to poverty and hopelessness. Time and again, researchers have seen that suicide rates go up when the economy spirals down. So, here you have a Nobel Prize-winning epidemiologist and chemist saying that the suicide rate is going to be worse than the death rate from COVID-19 if you keep the economy shut down. That is also what the President of the United States said, and he was trolled relentlessly for that by the controlled media. It's not fair. And we should get the country back up and running. We should not leave it shut down forever. Well, the COVID-19 fatality rate appears to be significantly higher than that of the flu, appears to be. Levitt says it is quite simply not the end of the world. The real situation is not nearly as terrible as they are making it out to be. There you go. The real story, folks, is the defeat of the deep state. And I have learned about this since 2000 from an Illuminati insider calling herself Salla, who debuted in March 2000. And I was into the conspiracy media back then. So pretty much right after she showed up, I started reading her stuff. I became friends with her and I connected her to alternative journalists as of 2002, which led to this article on Henry Macko's website, the first time it broke. And I'm going to read a little of this again and then I'm going to read you some new stuff from her that's very important. Oh, we're up to 34,000 live. That's awesome. If you detect the devil's hand in current events, you might be closer to the truth than you think. A woman who was raised in the so-called Illuminati describes a powerful secret organization comprising about 1% of the U.S.'s population that has infiltrated all of our social institutions and is covertly preparing a military takeover of the whole planet. This is a very important point. Her revelations cast the war on terror and homeland security in their true light. Salla is the pseudonym of the woman, age 45, who was a mind programmer for the cult until 1996. She specialized in mind control. She was the 6th head trainer in the San Diego branch and had 30 trainers reporting to her. She has risked her life to warn humanity of the Illuminati's covert power and agenda. She describes a sadistic, satanic cult led by the richest and most powerful people in the world. This is the article he wrote after I got him this information and connected the two of them together for an interview. This is largely homosexual and pedophile. It practices animal sacrifice and ritual murder. Unfortunately, this is all part of what it is. You know, homosexuality, do what you want, but I mean, when it starts to get into this other sick stuff, it's bad. It works hand in glove with the CIA and Freemasonry. It is Aryan supremacist, but it welcomes Jewish apostates. And they do speak German. They are Nazis at the top levels. So, all the way back in 2000, Salla now is looking highly prophetic because she was saying we were going to have what I am calling a greater depression. So in light of what they've just done with the economy, and this is kind of a joke, right? It's like, wait a minute. You guys get shut down for like 3 weeks and you're all going over the cliff. Everybody's bankrupt and you need these gigantic bailouts of trillions of dollars. Wait a minute. We bailed you out in 2008, and then you guys just paid yourself bonuses and nobody went to jail. And now you've done it again. You play in the same games you played before. Your whole thing implodes in 3 weeks, and we're supposed to bail you out again. The Federal Reserve was taking $1 trillion a day, and they were going to do that till the end of the month. But that all changed, thanks to some things. This is a big, big part of what we're going to talk about in a minute here. But I want you to hear from Savali herself about what they were planning to do. And remember, this was in 2000. And you can go look this stuff up. It's never gone away. It's still online. Check it out. Do you want to hear the end of the world scenario the Illuminati taught me as a member? This is her talking. It was cult propaganda, but this is how they believed the new world order would be ushered in. There will be continued conflict in the Middle East, with the severe threat of nuclear war being the culmination of these hostilities. Now, what did I show you in the last show? Sure enough, first they blew up all these oil fields, then they had this attack on the American embassy in Iraq, and they tried to get us into war with Iran. It was like the threat of the nuclear war. So that part that she said came true. But there's more. An economic collapse. Look at this. An economic collapse that will devastate the economy of the U.S. and Europe, much like the Great Depression. That's what they were planning all along. She said this in 2000. One reason that our economy continues to limp along is the artificial supports from the Federal Reserve, manipulating interest rates, etc. But one day this won't work, or the leverage will be withdrawn on purpose, and the next Great Depression will hit. Sure enough. Now, this is what's not going to happen, okay? This is what they were trying to do, but it's not going to happen, just to be clear. The government will call in its bonds and loans, and credit card debts will be called in. There will be massive bankruptcies nationwide. Europe will stabilize first, and Germany, France, and England, surprise, surprise, the top 3 Illuminati countries, will have the strongest economies and will institute through the UN an international currency. Well, that was what they were trying to do with the euro, and the Brexit thing has destroyed that. That is not going to happen. The cabal is being defeated, but this is the plan that they had before it was successfully countered by what I'm calling the alliance. Japan also will pull out, although their economy will be weakened. Peacekeeping forces will be sent out by the UN and local bases to prevent riots. The leaders will reveal themselves. These are the true satanic leaders of the Illuminati. And people will be asked to make a pledge of loyalty during a time of chaos and financial devastation. Now again, this is not what is happening now. But the idea was they wanted to destroy the planet, and then they wanted to reveal that they are, in fact, Luciferians. They think Lucifer is the good guy. And if you don't believe them, they're going to kill you. If you don't want to go along with it, they're going to kill you or put you in a concentration camp. It's very, very scary. These people are serious as a heart attack. You might not believe they really exist, but look at what happened with Weinstein. Look at what's happening with Epstein. There's something going on here, and the alliance knows about it, and that's what QAnon is, and that's what the Trump presidency really is. It is intended to stop this thing from continuing, and it's working. Thank God. This doesn't sound pleasant, does it? I don't know the exact time frame for when they wanted to do this, and I wouldn't want to even guess. The good news is that if a person is debt-free, owes nothing to the government or credit debt, and can live self-sufficiently, they may do better than others. I would invest in gold, not stocks, if I had the income. Gold, once again, will be the world standard. Dollars will be pretty useless. Remember, after the Civil War, our money will be worth about what Confederate money was after the collapse. All this said, it could just be cult propaganda that was taught to me and others to frighten us. It may be that none of this will happen. I sincerely hope it won't. I also strongly believe that God is able to stay the hand of the wicked and able to take care of our nation and others if we turn to Him. Now, that's her belief. She's a Christian. That's how she got out of the Illuminati. So this is another very important one. The article was called The Illuminati Plan to Rule the World. This, again, was written in 2000. All groups have goals, and the Illuminists are no exception. Money-making is not their final goal. It is a means to an end. The end point is no less than to rule the world. The Illuminati has a set plan similar to the Soviet Union's previous 5-year and 10-year plans. This is what the Illuminists themselves believe and teach their followers as gospel truth. Whether they will actually succeed is another matter altogether. The following is the Illuminist agenda at all levels of the Illuminati. As with any goal, the Illuminati has specific steps which it plans to implement to reach its objectives. Briefly, each region of the United States has nerve centers or power bases for regional activity. The United States has been divided up secretly into 7 major geographical regions. Each region has localities within it that contain military compounds and bases that are hidden in remote isolated areas or on large private estates. These bases are used intermittently to teach and train generational Illuminati in military techniques, hand-to-hand combat, crowd control, use of arms, and all aspects of military warfare. Why? Because the Illuminists believe that our government as we know it, as well as the governments of most nations around the world, are destined to collapse. These will be planned collapses, and they will occur in the following ways. The Illuminati has planned first for a financial collapse that will make the Great Depression look like a picnic. Well, now it's going twice as fast as the Great Depression did already, the crash of 1929. This will occur through the maneuvering of the great banks and financial institutions of the world, through stock manipulation and interest rate changes. Most people will be indebted to the federal government through bank and credit card debt. The governments will recall everyone's debt immediately, but most people will be unable to pay and will be bankrupted. This will cause a generalized financial panic which will occur simultaneously worldwide as the Illuminists firmly believe in controlling people through finances. Next, there will be a military takeover, region by region, as the government declares a state of emergency and martial law. Now look at this. People will have panicked. There will be an anarchical state in most localities. That's not happening now. And the government will justify its move as being necessary to control panicked citizens. Now, I don't believe any of this is going to happen, but this is what they wanted to happen. It's important to understand what they were planning. The cult trained military leaders and people under their direction to use arms as well as crowd control techniques to implement this new state of affairs. This is why so many survivors under 36 years of age report military programming. People who are not Illuminists or who are not sympathetic to the Luciferianism will resist. The Illuminists expect this and will be and are being trained in how to deal with this eventuality. They are training their people in hand-to-hand combat, crowd control, and if necessary, they will kill in order to control crowds. The Illuminati is training their people to be prepared for every possible reaction to their global takeover, the New World Order. Many of their mind control victims will also be called into duty with preset command codes. She talks all about how that works in her books. These codes are meant to call out a new and completely loyal to the cult presenting system, meaning the person's personality changes and is now an Illuminati advocate. Shatter codes that have been programmed under severe trauma will be used to destroy or bury any alternate personalities or alters that would not be loyal to the cult. Military bases will be set up in each locality. Actually, they are already here, but they're covert. In the next few years, they will go above ground and be revealed. I'm not sure if that happened. I assume it did. Each locality will have regional bases and leaders to which they are accountable. The hierarchy will closely reflect the current covert hierarchy. About 5 years ago, when I left the Illuminati, which would have been 1995, approximately 1% of the U.S. population, according to her knowledge, was either part of the Illuminati, sympathetic to it, or a victim of their mind control, and therefore considered usable. Well, 1% would be, I guess, about 3 million people, right? Because of 300 million people at the time. 3 million people's a lot. Well, this may not sound like many. Imagine 1% of the population highly trained in the use of armaments, crowd control, psychological techniques, behavioral techniques, armed with weapons and linked to paramilitary groups. These people will also be completely dedicated to their cause. The Illuminati firmly believes it can easily overcome the other 99% of the population, most of whom are untrained or poorly trained, such as quote-unquote weekend hunters. Even the local militaries will be overcome, as the Illuminati will have regional cell groups with highly trained leaders. They also count on the element of surprise helping them during their takeover. Now, before we go any farther, I understand this is like crazy fear porn, okay? And I'm only telling you this not because this is what's happening. Most of this stuff has now been stopped. The alliance, the military, is the good guys, actually. They're working for our benefit, and they are not participating in this agenda. They have broken away from it, and so you're not going to see this happen, but it is important to understand exactly what they were planning. And when they come out and they tell you, hey, we believe in Lucifer, we think Lucifer's the good guy, your gods, your kings are the Rockefellers and the Vanderbilts and the Carnegies and the Rothschilds, that's what they were planning on doing. You have to worship these people. You have to worship these billionaires. And if you don't, then they're going to kill you. And they want everybody microchipped. They want everybody controllable. That's what they were planning. So this is being stopped, thank God. But I want you to understand what they were trying to do, and this was all leaked back in 2000. Many of the highest leaders in the militia branch of the Illuminati are or have been officers in the military, and so they already have a good knowledge of what techniques will work best to overcome a region or locality's defenses. After the military takeover, the general population will be given a chance to either espouse the Illuminati's cause or reject it, with imprisonment, pain, and even death being possible punishment. These people very much believe that the intelligent or enlightened or illuminated were born to rule, which they think is them. They are very arrogant. They consider the general population to be dumb sheep who will be easily led if they are offered strong leadership, financial help in an unstable world economy, and dire consequences if they rebel. These people's utter ruthlessness and their ability to implement this agenda should never be minimized. The Illuminati banking leaders, such as the Rothschilds, Vanderbilts, Rockefellers, Carnegies, and Mellons, as some examples, will reveal themselves and offer to save the floundering world economy. Well, they caused the problem. A new system of monetary exchange based on an international monetary system and running between Cairo, Egypt, and Brussels, Belgium, will be set up, so she said, this was the plan. A true one-world economy creating the longed-for one-world order will become a reality in this plan. There is more to their agenda, but these are the basics of it. This agenda is what the Illuminati really truly believe, teach, and are training for. And again, 3 million people in America alone is quite a lot trying to do this. They are willing to give their lives up in this cause in order to teach the next generation as they believe their children are their legacy. I was told that my children's generation would see this takeover happen sometime in the 21st century. Well, now we're 20 years in. At present, the Illuminati have quietly and covertly fostered their takeover plan by their goals of the infiltration of, number 1, the media. That's obviously a big one, huge. Number 2, the banking system. Number 3, they've infiltrated the educational system. They're only going to tell you what they want you to know. Number 4, the government, both on a local and federal scale. Number 5, the sciences. I've been doing a lot of work to untangle what really needs to be told about in science from credible PhDs who are ignored. And number 6, the churches. Yes, that also. So religion has been all screwed up by these guys. In the political arena, they will fund both sides of a race because their greatest maxim is that out of chaos comes order, which is a discipline of anarchy. That is why they sent arms to and funded both sides of both of the great world wars in this century. And I already knew that when I read this. They believe history is a game like chess, that only out of strategy, fighting, conflict, and testing will the strong emerge. I no longer agree with this philosophy, but at one time I did with all my heart. Hopefully, as these people and their agenda are exposed, the common man will rise up against this intended rule to be foisted upon an unsuspecting mankind. Well, she is using gender-specific language there, but that was her choice. Now, in 2006, I got her to go on the radio. We have it on my website in the Revealing article. You can still listen to it and download it, with Greg Szymanski. And here again, she said, I was told there would be an enormous economic collapse prior to the revealing, which is when they say, here we are, everybody, and now you have to worship Lucifer. Literally, that's what they were wanting to do. Basically, the stock market would destabilize, and then the caller said, well, that appears to be already happening. She said, yeah, I was told it would make the Great Depression look like Sunday school. Well, look at what they're doing right now. At that time, they're going to be really manipulating finances to bring about chaos, confusion, warfare, and then, but you see, I don't like to be so negative, but I'm telling you what I was taught when I was in the group, you know? And the caller said, well, I so appreciate it. Out of this chaos, they said, would come order. You see, this group believes that out of chaos comes order. Now, way back in 2000, she also talked about this group believing in Atlantis. Check this out. The Illuminati completely believe that Atlantis is real. They teach it to their children as part of their oral history. They believe Atlantis was one of the greatest civilizations that ever existed and one of the most advanced. What they teach, their take on it, is that Atlantis was a great race of highly intelligent people who had a highly advanced faith and were highly enlightened. But then what they teach, the Illuminati children, is that there was a prophet of the enemy, They think God is the enemy, right? So a prophet of the enemy, who was actually a prophet of God, came and foretold that they would be destroyed if they didn't change their ways. They were definitely occultists. They were Luciferians on Atlantis. I don't really think that's true, but the Atlantean stuff has been reoriented into Luciferianism. But she thinks that was their religion, okay? I don't agree with that. In fact, a lot of the advances that Atlantis enjoyed were passed down to them through supernatural means. That is what I will say, probably meaning extraterrestrials is what she's referring to. So they laughed at this prophet. In fact, they killed him. This is what they tell you in the Illuminati, apparently. Sometime afterward, we were taught that a few inhabitants escaped, but tragically, the great city of Atlantis was lost. The Illuminati to this day mourn the loss of Atlantis because they feel that the last few survivors who were left among the great people who helped found the free, what you would call the precursors of Illuminism. She's obviously was going to say Freemasons and then stopped herself. Now, this is really interesting because one of the pieces of intel we've gotten for so long is that there was going to be this Antarctic Atlantis thing. So she's alluding to a lot of stuff here, but the idea being that Noah's flood actually is all the way back to the Atlantean catastrophe, and the hidden continent is actually where Antarctica is. That the Earth shifted on its axis, the continent that had all this advanced technology on it, all these pyramids and stuff, flooded, and then the ice quickly froze into glaciers based on its new position on Earth, and there's all these artifacts down there that we're going to get to see. We're going to be shown this. Now, part of the partial disclosure Tom DeLonge to the Stars Academy of Arts and Science plan, as Tom DeLonge himself said when he was on the air with Joe Rogan and he was all twitchy, right, that they want to be revered as gods once again, and they're going to be telling us something about Atlantis, that there was this group that crashed here from somewhere else, and they survived on Earth, and they became the gods, and that's the Atlantean tradition, that they were essentially extraterrestrials who crashed on Earth, and now they feel that they need to take the planet back, that it belongs to them, and they think that they're better than everybody else. These people apparently did have elongated skulls, and they were a lot more intelligent than everybody else, and they ruled because of that. Now, again, that plan has not worked, but it's important to show, again, that the Atlantis connection was there with Savali all the way back in 2000. Now, the Alliance has successfully countered this nefarious plan, and I'm very, very happy to report this to you. This is not a bad thing, folks. The Federal Reserve, as of March 27th, and the new $2.2 trillion bill has been taken over by the United States of America. This was the dream of John F. Kennedy, and it has now happened. So a couple slides from the last one. Kennedy was working so hard to defeat the cabal, and especially Executive Order 11110. I actually got that wrong. There needs to be one more one in there. It's 4 ones, where he stopped the Fed from selling off America's silver in the dimes and quarters. Because if we keep that silver, we have collateral to back up a new currency as the price goes up. So this again is like a very short-term thing in the 1920s where you had dollars that were payable in silver at the Treasury. And there's a $10 bill that's a silver certificate. Kennedy had said that he intends to expose a plot to enslave every man, woman, and child. He knew about this thing. He knew about what Savali was saying. And he was assassinated, and shortly thereafter they stopped making our coins out of silver, and they just tried to sell it all off, sure enough. But now Kennedy's dream is official, and the media is already portraying it in a very negative light. This is one article where it says, "The Fed's cure risks being worse than the disease." This is March 27th by Jim Blanco. And here it says right here, I just want you to see this here, in the middle paragraph there. In other words, the federal government is nationalizing large swaths of the financial markets. Here we go. So in essence, the Treasury, not the Fed, is now buying up all these securities and backstopping of loans. The Fed is acting as a banker and providing financing, and believe me, they're probably not doing it willingly, except that the alliance has forced them to. The Fed hired BlackRock Incorporated to purchase these securities and handle the administration of the SPVs on behalf of the owner, which is the Treasury. So look, this is not something that they wanted to do, okay? This is not the plan that the Illuminati had. This is, remember, the Federal Reserve is a private corporation that took over the financial system as of 1913, and we've lost 99% of the value of the dollar since that happened due to inflation. They are not our friends, and they are a foreign entity. They're not even in the US. They're British, mostly British bankers, and they are part of these too big to fail banks. So the Federal Reserve is literally these wealthy British billionaires controlling our currency with the intent that at some point they would reveal themselves and what their religious beliefs are, that they have this weird cult and that they wanted to take over the planet. Well, that's all gone away. They've lost that power. And Trump has taken back the control of the Federal Reserve. It is so amazing that, and we were talking about this, the nationalizing of the Federal Reserve, that we're going to get Treasury notes, not Federal Reserve notes. People didn't believe me. They said that's impossible. How could that happen? Even before Trump ever won the election, I was talking about this. And it actually happened because the alliance's plan is succeeding, and this is a big, big part of it. If America's in control of its own currency, that means that these guys are not. The alliance is going to come out very soon after the 3 days and tell you what's really going on, and it's very, very amazing. In other words, it says in this article, the federal government is nationalizing large swaths of the financial markets. The Fed is providing the money to do it. BlackRock will be doing the trades. This scheme essentially merges the Fed and the Treasury into one organization. So, he says with such scorn and hatred in his voice, meet your new Fed chairman, Donald J. Trump. He just can't handle it. He can't handle it. He can't handle what's going on. But honestly, this is the media. I mean, this is the way they really are. They don't like this. They don't like the guy. And that's okay. You know, if you want to think he's bad, that's fine. But there's a lot more going on here. That's why the media was relentlessly attacking him for so long. Okay? There's a very strong likelihood that mass arrests are about to happen. Just to review from last show, very quickly, the U.S. has now sent 30,000 troops over to Europe, most of them in the last 2 weeks, and right in the middle of the COVID-19 crisis. And you already saw me read this before. Manilo Dinucci writes on March 3rd that despite the travel ban, 20,000 American troops are traveling to Europe over the next few days, joining 10,000 already there. And they are there for the Defender Europe 20 exercise, which is the largest deployment of U.S. troops in Europe for 25 years. Including those already present, about 30,000 will participate, flanked by 7,000 troops from 17 other NATO countries, including Italy. So this is a huge 18-country effort. This is not the U.S. being crazy. This is an international effort to save the world. None of these troops have been issued with bio-hazchem suits or masks, which seems a little reckless. The 30,000 U.S. soldiers who will spread through the European region are in fact exempted from these preventive regulations. The assurance given by the U.S. Army in Europe that we are monitoring the coronavirus and our forces are in good health is enough. At the same time, the environmental impact of a military exercise of this magnitude is ignored. That's their angle to try to make you hate it. U.S. Abrams tanks will participate, and they suggest in another article there might be about 3,000 of them. They weigh 70 tons each, and they have depleted uranium, which again is horrible. We don't like that, but you know, it is very powerful for getting through armor. Each tank consumes 400 liters of fuel, producing heavy pollution to deliver maximum power. So, that, I was thinking that the arrests were already happening with that exercise. That is not true. We got briefings on that. They are in position, but they are not doing the final stage yet. What we now know, and the briefing that I was authorized to give you, is that there will be a shutdown of phone and internet. And it's going to be 3 days. So we're calling this the 3 days of darkness. Remember when Q said it's going to be biblical? This is what they were really talking about. We'll get more into that later. As I said, I never thought I would be able to talk about this particular briefing. The first glimmer of it that I got was from Corey Good on Saturday, March 21st. He has multiple sources feeding us information. I had already done the video and discussed Defender Europe 20 as if arrests were already happening. That was the first video we did. The general, we have a couple guys we call the general, but the general called and laughed and said, nope, it's not happening yet. Nobody's been arrested in Europe yet. But he was amazed that I got all those details right. He said the final stage will involve about 3 days where we do not have access to regular phone calls. You can make emergency calls to 911 or other things like, a hospital, I guess. But you're not going to have the internet or the phone. And they want you to know about this so that you don't freak out and commit suicide, I guess. A lot of people they're worried might do that. But they have to go through this. So there will be an emergency presidential broadcast system that they will use. The QAnon source talked about this December 19th, 2019. They will use a national presidential alert system. And why was this created and tested? For political and information warfare. During these 3 days, they believe that they're going to be able to get everybody. They've got it all planned out, how they're going to get this thing done. They think they can get it all done in 3 days. It might take a little bit longer, but they probably will get it done in 3 days. And it's going to be fast, probably 24-hour-a-day shifts that these soldiers are working. So this is a text from Corey where he said, I sure hope the arrests are going on. I was also told recently that all communications except 911 would go offline. I am not sure if they mean cell communications only, but they did say the internet would slow to a crawl during any actual mass arrests. Then the National Emergency Network would come on, just like you had said in the last video. With the virus scenario, they may not need to take communications down or shut down electricity in regions. We are not hearing they're going to turn off the electricity. That's very important. This virus, the cabal's last-ditch effort, may be the perfect screen for the Alliance to do the arrests. I am just hearing majorly conflicting information on that from my contacts. That is not conflicting anymore. The general was hearing it in the beginning, but then said it was called off. This is going to be happening. They are going to do it now. I am also hearing there are very strange troop movements, National Guard, but also elite Marine units who specialize in breaching compounds have been seen moving around in a frantic manner on their base. I can't remember which one. So here's another thing. These military units have been planning to do these arrests for years, and they have been in warehouses where they have lines of tape and they've taped out where the compounds are that they're going to have to go into, where the doors are, where the security cameras are, how to get in, how to get out, how to get the people out alive and safely. They don't want to kill people. They want these people to be on trial. This is not a mass murder. This is an arrest. But they are going to go in there to get these folks, okay? And apparently, there's nothing that these guys can do to run. So it doesn't hurt anything for me to be leaking this intel. I was very clear on that before coming out with it. But this is very exciting. So let's go back to the slide. FEMA was gearing up some camps that had been set aside, but they were not being set up in a pattern that would be expected for a pandemic. It appears that the FEMA camps will be used as temporary holding prisons for the people who are going to be arrested. Isn't that ironic? It repeats back on the people that built it for us. So much speculation, even among the top brass, because over a week ago, all the proper briefings have stopped and communications went down. We are now running silently. We are also told to expect a lot of strange earthquakes around areas you would expect secret bases to be at. That did happen in Utah. You might have noticed a few other places. Communications being down and troop movement is going on for sure. This is way too much overkill for a virus outbreak of this magnitude. And the general was even saying there were rumors of using the situation for the economic reset. Now, we're up to 30, we have 36,400 people watching right now. That's pretty awesome. Thank you. We have 5 different sources who independently said the same thing to Corey Goode. So, these are people who built up trust. I've met some of them myself, some of them I haven't. We have some of the same sources, we have some different ones. 5 different sources have basically said that there would be 3 days with no phone and no internet. The other utilities would be on. Your phone starts giving off the emergency broadcast system. You hear this crazy sound. It starts talking to you. Please remain calm. Remain in your house. It was something like this. More information will follow. Please remain calm. Please stay inside your house. It'll be something like that. You're not really going to be knowing what's going on when this happens. They're not going to tell you this is the mass arrest. So some people are going to have a serious dark night of the soul when we go through these 3 days, because they're worried that this is the end, okay, and that this is martial law and this is a government takeover. That's not what it is. The real takeover was going to happen if the Illuminati had not been opposed by this amazing group of military and intelligence officials, not just from the US, but all over the world, that are working to make sure these plans don't succeed, which once again, after the only 3 days, what we're hearing is that everybody's going to get the truth. There's these 8-hour chunks of data. They're going to run 3 times a day. You got to watch the whole 8 hours to get the data. And once you've done that, you'll basically now be aware of what's really going on, who these people are, what they were trying to do, and how they're being stopped. I cannot begin to tell you guys how effing excited I am about this. And it explains so many things. The 3 days of darkness turn into light, where we expose the shadow, right? So darkness into light is one of the things that QAnon said. And remember, on December 19th, they said the enormity of what is coming will shock the world. And they've also said nothing can stop what is coming. Well, how does that sound right now? Here it is again, post 3728. The enormity of what is coming will shock the world. And they keep saying over and over and over again, nothing can stop what is coming. Nothing. This plan, they've got it's all going to be legal. They've got all the sealed indictments. If you watch the count of sealed indictments, there's a gigantic number of them going through. These are secret grand jury trials. They create a sealed indictment, and they're going to open up all these sealed indictments in the 3 days in the court record, and then go get the people that need to be arrested. It's an international police operation. So Corey tells me this on February or March 21st, and then 2 days later, Benjamin Fulford, who sometimes has real stuff, sometimes his intel is very wrong, but he had oddly similar intel. This is when I really got excited. And in this case, it's being blamed on a gigantic magnetic pulse, but the result is the same. So check this out. This is Fulford's article from the 23rd. And he says, since the pandemic show and computer graphics may soon stop fooling people, MI6 and CIA sources say that the next phase will involve a giant magnetic pulse that will pass through Mother Gaia within the week. So this was the 23rd. So obviously, this is a very short-term duration. And I don't think it's going to be quite that fast. This will cause a temporary shutdown of the internet and mobile phone communications. Well, there it is again. Except here, the CIA, which is not necessarily the good guys, are trying to say, oh, it's a gigantic magnetic pulse. Not that it's a very deliberately intended shutdown, okay? CIA sources say the airlines have already started to be prepared, because again, they're trying to say this is an EMP. Airplanes flying at the time of the huge electromagnetic pulse that passes through the planet will be knocked out of the sky. Watch for any plane crashes over the next week or so. This will be the cause. Certainly air traffic is being shut down. I don't think this is true. I think they always put in some disinformation. It's not a magnetic pulse, and it's not going to knock down planes, okay? Just so that we're clear. I don't believe that's what this is. But look at what he did say. He did say phone will be shut down, internet will be shut down. That's the same. This prediction of a massive asteroid or exploding in the atmosphere by NASA may be a trigger for another big magnetic wave that will hit the planet within 10 days of March 23rd, which again would get us only till like April 2nd or something. It may shut down all electronics on the planet for a few days until there is a reboot. Again, we're not expecting the electronics to go down. So again, that's probably disinformation. It's not an asteroid, it's not a magnetic wave, and it's not going to lead to a power shutdown. But then he gives this link, about NASA is tracking an asteroid with a very close approach to the Earth. He says, let us see. He doesn't really believe this. But as a precaution, make sure you have the landline numbers or physical addresses of those closest to you. So this is when I called Corey back and I said, wait a minute. What's going on with this 3-day magnetic pulse? And then I got the briefings. I put it all together that we're going to get these presidential emergency briefings coming off of our phone. They won't say what's really going on at the time. Now, here's another big part of this briefing, folks. We have to rewire and reboot the internet. That's part of why the internet's got to go down completely for 3 days. Because there are certain major nodes, certain major choke points that all the traffic is flowing through. You probably know what I'm talking about if you've done your homework. And these nodes are very dark. There's more than one of them, and they must be removed. After those particular choke points are literally taken out of the internet. They're cutting the cords, they're rewiring everything. Then they turn it back on, because now all these very evil and dark places that the cabal was using for censorship, for surveillance, all that stuff, all those tools will be taken away from the cabal now. So that's part of what's going to happen. We get a new internet that doesn't have the bad guys being able to watch you through your camera phone anymore. So this is part of why they got to turn off everything, okay? It's very important. The Alliance does not want you to be afraid during these 3 days. They want you to be excited because this is not martial law. This is not a takeover. Stay home. Don't be a weekend warrior. Don't go running outside with a gun. Somebody will shoot you if you do that. It's not a good idea. Stay inside and be happy that we're going to get this thing. Because after it's over, we get the truth coming at us from everywhere. Now, if this wasn't enough, another briefing came in independently on Saturday the 28th from Disclosed TV's private newsletter. I got it sent to me. And once again, they say the same thing, showing you how widespread this intel is. Breaking news. U.S. President Donald Trump has signed an executive order authorizing the call-up of up to 1 million reserve military personnel in the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. I read it, and that is true. It doesn't mean he's going to use them all, but he can call them up now. We need 100% of people inside their homes in order to see what the U.S. military will broadcast on all televisions around the world once they turn the lights back on, proverbially speaking, after the 3 days. This will be very painful, but we can no longer have our people divided. Around Sunday or Monday, which again is today, I don't know if it's going to be this fast. It probably will be a little longer based on another briefing we just got, which I'll show you in a minute. The President of the United States will tweet to my American fellow citizens that the storm is upon us, and we received no briefings on when this will be. We will then go, I don't think this is really true, but we will go to full global martial law. And he says the chances are, if you're the president, that you'll be on board your military plane Air Force One when you send 7 presidential messages to all televisions and phones around the world in the emergency broadcast system. From all of your global armed forces through the U.S. Armed Forces, in the U.S., they will shut down all internet media and phones and all television programming for the U.S. military. Only the emergency services will be working. Then they will broadcast 10 days of 3 times 8 hours. So the same shift, 8-hour shifts for 10 days, and you got to watch one of the 3 shifts of video confessions, military courts, and a lot of evidence for the scandals that we listed in our article on the storm, which again is a lot of the same stuff I'm saying. While this is happening, they will eliminate the world government and carry out global arrests with 500,000 criminal charges. And then they have various plans of how this new financial system will be in place. I don't know if those are really going to happen, but there's Gesara and Nessara. They might not happen quite that way, but it is going to be a complete rewiring of planet Earth. Now, I want to be clear. He was saying it could be today or tomorrow. Obviously, I did wait. I wanted to be ready with this show. We have no idea if this is going to happen or when this is going to happen. So don't hate me if nothing happens, but I sure do think it's going to be something. But enough different sources have converged that we had to speak. We did get the authorization to disclose this information. And then yet another source, just today, gave me this briefing. Now this source is a completely separate individual. So we've got Fulford saying it's going to be a magnetic pulse. We've got Disclosed TV that got very specific information from somewhere. And then we got Corey Good, who's got information from 5 different sources that has been saying this for months, that the big thing we've been hearing for a year, the big thing was going to be in the spring of 2020. And we didn't know exactly what it was going to be, but they told him there would be 3 days of darkness without the internet or without the phone. They turn everything back on, and now you get the truth. Okay, so during those 3 days, the arrests happen, and this is what's happening now. This source is a completely separate friend, and that friend is telling me that we are going to have, he's got a friend in the State Department, he's connected, he's got definitely real connections, and this is exactly what he texted me just today, having no idea what I was about to leak here, so it came in from another source. He said, I heard something about a media shutdown that will take place between April 1st and 10th, when a lot of indictments will be unsealed, ending on Good Friday. I'm hopeful. So there again is a very similar piece of information, except now it's gearing towards Good Friday at the end of the 3 days. And remember, Q said it's going to be biblical, and look at what's happening. So I only came forward once the new briefings revealed that this would be safe. The Alliance has authorized me and certain others getting this information to tell you this so that you don't freak out when we go into the phone lockdown part. And this has now made the QAnon prophecy far more interesting because I'm realizing that they're building this whole concept of the mass arrest around the idea of ascension. In the Law of One material, which is my source text, I've used it for many years, and I only use this text because it's so accurate. There's hundreds of different specific things it says about science that turned out to be true. It is completely remodeled science. It's got a whole amazing philosophical background, and it's got lots and lots of things that have proven to be accurate. So it appears to have been derived from extraterrestrials telepathically, but I do not lump it in with the other sources of channeling. The only things that I would say are similar to the Law of One would be like the Edgar Cayce material and the Seth books, and really that's about it, okay? But it does appear that actual extraterrestrials did communicate telepathically. They gave us a much higher level download of information than we've gotten from anywhere else, and they talk about this change in the world that they call the harvest, and a lot of people got freaked out about that term. But they use that term because it's in the book of Matthew. There's several places in there where they refer to the Bible very specifically. They use the term everlasting rock, which is out of the book of Isaiah. They use the term harvest, which is out of the book of Matthew. They use the term logos, which is the Greek term for word. Okay, they use that a lot. So in the new book, which hopefully is going to come out on June 2nd, they tell me it will, it's called Awakening in the Dream. I've got a gigantic 500 plus page download on the Law of One with over 127 quotes from the Law of One. So please get on the pre-order list for Awakening in the Dream. This book, I wrote it saying, and I handed it in the day before Wuhan went into lockdown. I was working my tail off. I'm not able to do anything more. So whatever the book is, it's only going to be what I'd written up until January 21st. But I took a huge gamble based on all the prophetic dreams I'm getting and all the data I was getting, and I said in the book that I believe by the time this book comes out, there will have been a major change in the world that will make this make more sense to you. It sure looks like that's happening, and I'm doing a class called The Great Awakening, which is going to be getting you that intel in that book before, if you don't want to wait for the book to come out, if you're so excited about what I'm going to say in the book, which you should be, frankly, we're going to put out all this stuff in advance in this class. It gives you a way to support us, and it's totally new information from what I did last year when we called it Ascension Mystery School. This is going to be called The Great Awakening. I'll have more on that in a minute. But they use the term harvest in the Law of One series to describe this multidimensional shift that we go through as a planet. Now, isn't it interesting that QAnon, which appears to be the real good guys in the Alliance, said on November 16, 2019, the harvest will soon be delivered to the public for consumption. This is post 3599. That's exactly what it says in the Law of One. It's a biblical metaphor, okay? And then they say on November 23rd, it's going to be biblical, the Great Awakening. Well, I thought that I understood what they meant when they said it's going to be biblical. And I thought that it had to do with the plagues, right? The biblical plague, right? It was what we're seeing. And the idea of the collapse of, the economy, which we're seeing that. Okay, that all sounds good. But the 3 days of darkness is biblical, right? Jesus died for 3 days, and then they put him in the tomb, and then 3 days later he comes back in the resurrection. So isn't it interesting that the Alliance has chosen to do 3 days of darkness, as almost as if, and this is what I'm now thinking, okay, that there are positive angelic beings that are working, because this is what most ETs are actually, is angelic positive beings, that are, there's only a very small percent, like less than 5% of them, they're evil, but they're very evil. That they have crafted this so that we get 3 days of darkness on Earth, followed by a resurrection. Now, at that point, we have many years' worth of articles and documentaries that will be emerging. And then back to the slide, they did tell us on Valentine's Day this year that we're going to get a world televised sit-down. This is Q once again, 3862. Look at that right there. It says, number 1, allow for public dissemination of critical facts prior to a world televised sit-down. And then they say on February 17th, it's going to be a very hot spring. But in the meantime, this is a very important point. What is happening to us as we are going through this COVID shutdown. Now, I understand, and I'm very sensitive to the idea that you may feel that you are, screwed for life, that your business is screwed, your finances are screwed, you have no hope, you have no future. But they are already going to be paying everybody $1,200, and they've said they're going to do more if they need to, if it lasts longer. And when we get out of this thing, we're going to get a global financial reset, which will have much greater prosperity. There's literally trillions of dollars that the cabal stole, that the alliance has frozen. We got these briefings a long time ago. And that money will be released. So this is actually, in alcoholic terminology, this is hitting the bottom. We are hitting the bottom, and we don't have to go any lower than that. We can raise the bottom, as they say in 12-step terminology. We don't have to go lower than this as a planet. This is one of the big messages I wanted to bring you today. So the Law of One reveals that the more leisure you have, the faster you are going to ascend. And they did this when they were talking about Nikola Tesla and what would have happened if his free energy devices had not been impeded. So this is very wordy stuff. They talk in a very wordy way, but that's because it's an extraterrestrial intelligence. It's a higher intelligence, okay? The most desired purpose of the mind-body-spirit complex, or what we call a person, Nikola Tesla, was the freeing of all planetary entities from darkness. Thus, Tesla attempted to give the planet the infinite energy of its sphere for use in lighting and power. And then he says, by freeing the planetary entities from darkness, precisely what do you mean? And they say, we spoke of freeing people from darkness in a literal sense. Would this freeing from darkness be commensurate with the Law of One, or does this have any real product? And they say the product of such a freeing would create two experiences. Firstly, the experience of no need to find the necessary emolument for payment in your money for energy. So on a very simple level, if we get free energy, you don't have to have anything you don't need money anymore because you don't need to pay for energy. Energy is the basis of capital. Secondly, the leisure afforded, thereby exemplifying the possibility and enhancing the probability of freedom to then search the self for the beginning of seeking of the Law of One. So there you have it. If you have the solitude, if you have the time to be by yourself, now you can actually seek the Law of One. Now you have the time to relax and to have fun and to contemplate because you're not focused on survival. So it's very important in the midst of this little time that you have to just be in the house that you're doing the meditation, you're doing the cosmic work on yourself, you're doing what you can to meditate, contemplate, and seek the Creator. This is very important. Few there are, Law of One says, working physically from daybreak to darkness, as you name them, upon your plane, who can contemplate the Law of One in a conscious fashion. So now that they don't have to work all the time, they're finally getting to have these major spiritual breakthroughs, and I'm seeing that everywhere as I walk around outside. Everybody is so friendly, and it's so funny because what one of the prophecies of ascension is that the dead would rise from their graves and walk around. And I'm seeing the possibility of that prophecy coming true because people are walking around smiling, and I've never seen these people out before. There's so many more pedestrians now than there ever used to be. The street is crowded, and you got to walk around them to practice social distancing, but everybody's doing that. But even then, everybody is smiling, everybody is happy. The cars that used to speed by me here in Los Angeles are now going at a normal speed when they see pedestrians. It's wonderful. So I'm very happy about what it's like outside. So then he asks, what about the Industrial Revolution in general? Was this planned in any way? They say that is correct. Wanderers incarnated in several waves, that's ET souls, angelic souls, of which there are probably over 200, 300 million of them on Earth now. Wanderers incarnated in several waves, as you may call them, in order to bring into existence the gradual freedom from the demands of the diurnal cycles, that's day and night, and the lack of freedom of leisure. Okay, so what that means is that industrialization did help us out because before then you had to work really hard to grow your own food, wash your own clothes, you had to use, you had to wash all your dishes by hand, you didn't have a dishwasher, you didn't have a washing machine for your clothes, you had to make your own food, churn your own butter, raise your own chickens, raise your own eggs. It was a very difficult life, and you're not going to have the time to really pursue spirituality because you're always working. Now we have the chance, especially with the COVID thing, to actually really meditate, and we're going to be doing that here not too far from now. So another thing I want to talk about is the principle of spiritual Aikido. This is something that the Law of One talks about extensively, and it's very, very relevant to what's going on for us right now. And the idea here is that when the negative side makes a big move like they've just done, it's a terrible thing for them, actually, because if that move doesn't succeed, now the positive side is authorized to do much more than they ever could before. So because the negative side did try to kill the planet, and the positive beings, remember, what did I say last time? Edgar Mitchell and other astronauts and other notable people have talked about how UFOs appear over nuclear missile installations. They power down the entire base, and you don't get any type of available launch capability anymore. The missiles become inoperable, and this has been done for decades. Nobody's ever going to be able to have a nuclear war. The beings will not allow it. So what they have allowed, what they have authorized, is something that looks really scary, looks like it's the end of the world, but it's really not. It's not going to kill that many people. We heard from Michael Levitt, the Nobel Prize-winning chemist. This is not the end of the world. It's not a high death toll. But everybody's got to stay home, and now you're going to get your 3 days of darkness, and oh my God, I can't use the phone. Oh my God, I can't be on the internet. What do I do? Well, the president is telling me to stay inside the house on my phone. I guess I'll do that. That's when the arrests are happening. So the spiritual Aikido principle means that now that the negative tried this, that they actually tried to kill everybody, even though it failed, the positive now gets to do a heck of a lot more. Now, here's another thing. We just did release Cosmic Secret with the new version where you see me talking in a new shot version where the audio is better and I'm not as animated. I dialed my face down a little more. It looks a lot better. The movie's significantly improved. It's called The Cosmic Secret, so I do recommend, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. And I believe that if you bought it already, that you should be able to watch the new version now. It should automatically update for you when you go try to watch it now. So if you've already paid for it, you can go see it again with all new footage of me talking. It's the same words, but shot again with a little earpiece in my ear, a little invisible earpiece. And that was very difficult, by the way. I was hearing myself in real time and then shooting it out in real time, and the people that were filming me were amazed that I was pulling that off, but I did. So, in The Cosmic Secret, some people got upset by that movie because we're talking about this ascension scenario. And the ascension scenario basically said that we have been so spiritually ignorant here on Earth that it's going to ultimately take planetary catastrophes, cataclysms, tidal waves, tsunamis, pole shift to wake us up. Now, in that version of ascension, it's very important that you understand that most people on Earth, the vast majority of people on Earth, will not be here for that disaster. They will be rescued by an interstellar rescue plan. When Corey Goode was in the secret space program, if you believe his testimony, and I do, it was common knowledge in these ET groups that they come in and they rescue people at the end of a cycle because stars typically do give off this bright flash of light that causes catastrophic activity, or it can, unless we're balanced first. We have to be balanced on Earth, or else the planet goes through this pole shift. Now, those people who are taken off planet will be either relocated to another planet if they're not ready to become ascended beings, or they get to stay on Earth as it transforms into the fourth density, it is called, that apparently there's a new energetic configuration to the planet Earth that people are able to stay with the Earth as it upgrades into this higher frequency. But at that point, you're going to have a light body, you'll be able to levitate, you'll be able to lift objects with your mind, you'll be able to read other people's minds telepathically, you don't need to speak anymore, you'll know what your past lives are, you'll remember who you were. You kind of have both the afterlife and the physical life mastered at the same time. It's a really, really amazing prophecy, the Ascension prophecy. You become like a superhero, and you think about all the superhero films that we've had, and all these people flying, and all these people doing these amazing things with their hands and energy and stuff. This is literally like a prophecy of what will happen to those people who ascend. And again, the higher beings, like the Law of One, like all the great spiritual and religious teachings, they all tell us you just have to be nice. The Law of One even quantifies it, that you have to be 51% positively oriented, service to others, where you actually want to help people, and then you can be up to 49% manipulative, conniving, controlling, and evil, and you're still going to make the ascension. So it's not that hard. It shouldn't be that hard. You just have to be more interested in helping people than you are in causing them pain and fear and living off of them and getting them to work for you so you have it easy and they work hard, which is really what the cabal is doing. They are not at all doing an equivalent amount of work for the kind of money that they control. They just are in power and they've had the gun. So there are many scenarios in the Law of One that talks about how we could go through this thing with catastrophes. We will be rescued from them, but they will happen. Only the most evil people would be on earth to hang out through those catastrophes. However, the Law of One does say that there is the possibility of an event where we don't have to go through earth changes. And I am so excited today because I believe that what is happening with this actual shut-in is the possibility that we don't need earth changes. The Law of One talks about a single fine moment of inspiration, that there is the possibility that we could have this happen on a global level and eliminate the need for the earth changes, and we all get to ascend together. The whole planet gets to go into fourth density together. Wouldn't that be fun? If we can just frickin' learn to love each other and be nice and stop fighting and stop being mad at dad or mad at mom or whatever the heck it is, personally or globally, okay? Here's the all-important quote now, where they say we don't necessarily need to go through any catastrophes of physical nature. So check this out. The prophecies made by Edgar Cayce indicated many earth changes, and I am wondering about the mechanics of describing what we call the future. What is the value of a prophecy such as Cayce made with respect to earth changes in all of these scenarios? Now they say, they're making an analogy, they say, consider the shopper entering the store to purchase food with which to furnish the table for the time period you call a week. Some stores have some items, others a variant set of offerings. Maybe now they don't have as much because of the frickin' shutdown. We speak of these possibility-probability vortexes when asked with the understanding that each of these prophecies, if you will, like Cayce had, would be equivalent of a can or a jar or a portion of goods in the store. Okay, we got that. It is unknown to us as we scan your time space whether your people will shop hither or yon. We can only name some of the items available for your choosing as you go through this ascension process. The, shall we say, Akashic record, which the one you call Edgar read from, is useful in that same manner. There is less knowledge in Edgar's material, because Edgar talked about a pole shift, of course, of other possibility-probability vortices, and more attention paid to the one that is the strongest and most apt to happen. We do see this earth change catastrophe vortex, but we see many others. Edgar's material, they actually use his first name, Edgar's material could be likened unto 100 boxes of your cold cereal, another vortex likened unto 3 or 6 or 50 of another product which is eaten by your peoples for breakfast. All right, let me move this microphone again. Sorry about the scratchy noises, folks. We're working on it. That you will breakfast is close to certain. The menu is of your own choosing. The value of prophecy must be realized to be only that of expressing possibilities. There is no absolute future. Moreover, it must be, in our humble opinion, carefully taken into consideration that any time-space viewing, which is like a spiritual view of the future, whether by one of your time-space or by one such as we, who view the time-space from a dimension, shall we say, exterior to it, will have a quite difficult time expressing time measurement values, meaning it wasn't 2012, they tried to get it within a window, but they don't know exactly when this will take place. Thus, prophecy given in specific terms is more interesting for the content or type of possibility predicted than for the space-time nexus of its supposed occurrence. So hang in there with me. These are very important quotes. Session 65, question 10. Given the amount of strength of the possibility-probability vortex, which posits the expression by the planet itself of the difficult birthing of the planetary self into fourth density, it would be greatly surprising were not many who have some access to space-time able to perceive the catastrophic vortex. The amount of this cold cereal in the grocery store, to use our previous analogy, is disproportionately large. Now, here's the bottom line, okay? The planet needs to evolve. The planet needs to turn into a heaven on earth, true paradise. The Illuminati, the Cabal, the Deep State, whatever you call them, they are playing the biblical satanic role in this archetypal story that we're all dealing with. Their time is up. Why? Because we don't need that anymore. We don't need there's nothing to be gained from an organized negativity on earth. Now before, the Law of One talks about this extensively. The Illuminati is a mirror, because what happens at home? You have molestation taking place at home, even from somebody's own parent. And then you're supposed to act like everything's okay. After it happened, you don't talk about it. It's all hidden. When you're living with an alcoholic and you're getting abused all the time, and then the alcoholic says, "Oh, you know I love you," and none of this is really me. I was just very upset that night, you know? And they give you all the flowers, and they give you the chocolates, and they try to maintain control. They never admit that what they're doing is wrong or that they're at fault. They say, "Well, you made me do this. You made me abuse you. Anybody else in my situation would do the same thing." Okay? That's the individual level, which then iterates into the collective level where these people are hidden and they're evil. And so because we have hidden evil in our own lives, it has to iterate out into the world as a metaphorical reflection, which is what the Cabal really represents. So once we learn how to break away from our abusers in our own lives, and we do that by actually doing that in our own lives, we are holographically healing the planet. We are saying to the collective bad guys, your services, if you will, are no longer required. We don't want this. We don't want you guys doing this to us anymore. We're done. It's over. And you guys, time has run out. When their time runs out, that is like an ascension phase, right? Because now we have the possibility of a golden age. Release free energy technology, release anti-gravity, prosperity, you know, no more financial adversity, no more hunger, no more poverty. This is what could be right around the corner, okay? So there is a possibility, as the Law of One is about to say, for a way that we could get through this thing where we don't have catastrophes, because all we have to do is be nice to each other. Stop fighting. Stop being angry at Dad, whether it's Trump or whoever. Okay, Trump might end up doing something really cool and everybody's going to have to acknowledge that even if they don't like him. Yeah, okay, well, I don't really like the guy, but oh my God, look at what they pulled off. They nationalized the Federal Reserve. They got it back under U.S. control. They got rid of they arrested all these people. They got rid of all this corruption. They stopped children from being molested and killed. This is a good thing, okay? Yeah, it wasn't the hero that we wanted, but it's the hero we got for some people. That's how they're going to see it. Other people are just happy, and they're very much enjoying this video, I'm sure. All right, let's go back to this quote. Each person who prophesies does so from a unique level, position, or vibratory configuration. And there will always be biases and distortions in their prophecies because they are reading it in with their conscious mind. So then they say here, the angelic soul or the wanderer, it was the aim of the wanderers to serve the entities of planet Earth in whatever way they were requesting, and it was also the aim of wanderers that their vibratory patterns might lighten the planetary vibration as a whole, thus ameliorating the effects of planetary disharmony and palliating any results of this disharmony. So this is a very important point. I have this whole thing I've been talking about for many years. It's in my new book, More Than Ever, about the idea of being an extraterrestrial soul. I got awakened to this possibility when I read a book called From Elsewhere. It was in 1995 at the end of the year, and it said, you know, there was this questionnaire at the back, and it said if you can answer these 12 questions in the affirmative, then you're probably an ET/angelic soul. And this questionnaire was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. It was all the stuff about me that even my parents might not necessarily know. About being sensitive, having fantasies of spaceships, having fantasies of ancient civilizations, feeling like I had powers that I lost, feeling like my real parents were not my birth parents, but that there was some other, and I was having these dreams with this old man who felt a lot more like my father than my real parents did. That's just true. I mean, I do love my parents, but I always felt like something was off. And there's a lot of these weird characteristics. Being naive, having everybody take advantage of me because I'm so nice, and I want to see the good in people, thinking that everybody is as smart as I am, thinking that everybody is as nice as I am, that they're not going to betray you, and throughout my whole life being surprised over and over again at how crazy people can get and how ruthless they can get. Some really bad stuff has happened to me. So anyway, let's go on with this quote. Specific intentions such as aiding in a situation not yet manifest are not the aim of these ET souls. They're here to vibe up the planet just by staying happy. That's your main job, is to remain happy. Light and love go where they are sought and needed, and their direction is not planned beforehand. So that's what we got to do. We got to improvise. Do the vibrations of wanderers somehow add, just as electrical polarity or charging a battery or something? Does it also aid the planet, their physical presence? And they said, yes, this is correct, and the mechanism is precisely as you state. We intended this meaning in the second portion of our previous answer. So literally they feel that a certain number of angelic souls who are more evolved, and they're not going to understand why everybody's so mean here on Earth and manipulative, they're here just to bring up the energy level on planet Earth. You may at this time note, as with any entities, each wanderer has unique abilities, biases, and specialties, so that from each portion of each density represented among the wanderers comes an array of pre-incarnative talents from before they were born. They already came in with this stuff in their DNA, which then may be expressed upon this plane which you now experience, so that each wanderer, in offering itself before incarnation, has a special service to offer, in addition to the doubling effect of planetary love and light and the basic function of serving as a beacon or shepherd. Now, the doubling function, as they call it here, they call it the law of squares. I would probably want to call it the law of exponents. What they say is that each additional person who calls upon love creates an exponential increase in the amount of love that they can beam into our planet. They meaning these angelic beings. So let me say that again. Each additional person who's praying or meditating or feeling in a loving space and wanting the planet to be a better and more loving place, each one adds exponentially to the number of people that it's considered to be who is calling for this. So you get 2 to the first power, 2 to the second, 2 to the third, 2 to the fourth, and so the call becomes much, much greater than the call of the negative. When you do negative stuff, when you're calling for pain and fear and jealousy and betrayal and rage and terror, it only adds as one vote. But the votes for love count up exponentially. So if there's these wanderers on Earth who are naturally, the misfits, the outsiders who don't fit in because they're quirky and they're weird and they're sensitive and they're too loving and they're too trusting, those people, as they stay in love, they're doubling and they're exponentially increasing what the positive beings can do to help us. All of this stuff seems to be coming to a head right now on Earth. It's really amazing. So they say they have wanderers from 5th density whose abilities to express wisdom are great, and that's a lot of what I have. There are 4th and 6th density wanderers whose ability to serve as, shall we say, passive radiators or broadcasters of love and love light are immense, and that's also, people can do healing that way. There are many others whose talents brought into this density are quite varied. Thus, wanderers have 3 basic functions once the forgetting is penetrated. The first 2 being basic, radiating love and wisdom, the tertiary one being unique to that particular individual or mind-body-spirit complex. We may note at this point, while you ponder the possibility-probability vortexes, that although you have many, many items that may cause distress and offer seeking and service opportunities, this would include cataclysmic earth changes, right? There is always one container in that store of peace, love, light, and joy. And this is, again, is very important because these guys appear to be the administrators for planet Earth. Very important ET angelic group, like what we would call seraphim or cherubim in the Bible. This vortex of love, light, positivity, and joy may be very small, but to turn your back upon it is to forget the infinite possibilities within the present moment. That means, folks, we could still have an ascension where everybody wins and there's no catastrophes. Could your planet polarize towards harmony in one fine, strong moment of inspiration? Yes, my friends, it is not probable, but it is ever possible. Now, is it possible that I just did the most important thing I'm supposed to do for my whole life on Earth? Yes, it's possible. This is a very heavy message because look at what's happened. Everybody's at home. Everybody's going to see the TV. Everybody's going to find out that these people were destroying the world and they were using race versus race, gender versus gender, old versus young, my God is better than your God, religious versus religion, country versus country, all that stuff. They divide and conquer, right? What if we just let this go? What if we stop hating on everybody? What if we have something to feel really good about? The bad guys have been arrested, and we have a single, fine, strong moment of inspiration. Yes, they say it is not probable, but it is ever possible. And in this scenario, we don't have to go through earth changes. Because the whole reason we have the earth changes is because so many people are not being nice. So this is where you come in. You watching this video, we have so many people watching live right now. And we have the power to do this. We have the power, we're going to do this group meditation soon enough here, but we have the power to transform the outcome. And this is not idle speculation. I am literally not kidding when I say that you have the power to go out there, make a difference, get people thinking differently, and actually save the planet from needing to go through these birth pains in order to have this thing happen. We could literally start to have telepathy, levitation, and be able to do this, and we're all here, and the world is the same, but we start transforming it, and nobody needs to go through horrible earth changes. This thing being shut in and then having this thing appear on television, one of the sources that Corey has had ET contact with, the priestess Kari, has said that we now appear to be on the optimal timeline for planet Earth. And I'm having very excited dreams. So I actually think it's possible that we might not have to go through that crazy catastrophe after all. They left this in the Law of One for us to find it and talk about it now. They want us to get it. They want us to get what it means to be nice, to treat each other kindly. That's already happening. There's a great spiritual awakening. We have the solitude of being at home. And if we can get along with each other, then we can all be part of a society that has a space force, that has high technology, where we're not in danger of earth changes, and we all get to become a galactic civilization. Wouldn't that be nice? All we have to do to get there is be friendly to each other and stop acting like crazy people. It shouldn't be hard. And this one fine moment of inspiration, that's what I'm going to be pushing for, and that's what I want you to be pushing for as well. Let's read a little more here. Then, as these final days of the cycle transpire, if the harvest were to occur now, today, it would have a certain number going positive and negative, and a certain number of people repeating, which would be the vast majority, they say. That's the way it was. I'm going to assume that because of the catalyst which will be experienced, catalyst meaning difficult growth experiences, that's one of the terms they use a lot. I'm going to assume that because of the catalyst which will be experienced between now and the actual harvesting time, these numbers of people who are harvestable, meaning they can ascend, will increase. And then they say, this is the answer, in the event of mixed harvest, where you have people who are not loving on the same planet with people who are, in the event of mixed harvest, there is nearly always disharmony, and therefore added catalyst in the form of your so-called earth changes. In this assumption, you are correct. It is the Confederation's desire to serve those who may indeed seek more intensely because of this added catalyst. The Confederation is this angelic group, they say, is basically making sure we're okay. We do not choose to attempt to project the success of added numbers to the harvest, for this would not be appropriate. We are servants, and if we are called, meaning we have to pray, that's really what it comes down to, we shall serve with all of our strength. To count the numbers is without virtue. So again, you don't have to give up your religion. Any type of prayers you do are sufficient, whether it's to Muhammad or Buddha or Allah or Jesus, whatever. we could be hitting the bottom right now. This could be our planetary bottom. Maybe it doesn't have to get any worse, because the Law of One just told us that there is a way through this where there are no big catastrophes. We don't have to go through the earth changes, and this Great Awakening, as Q is calling it, is our perfect opportunity for that to happen. And before we do the meditation, I want to lay this one more concept on you, and then we're going to get into it. I want to keep this under 3 hours, and I think we can do that. So chaos theory is another way that we can look at this thing to prove that everything's going to be fine. Chaos theory, of course, is the idea that a flap of a butterfly's wing can create a typhoon on the other side of the planet. It was really introduced in this book by James Gleick called Chaos Making a New Science. And there's a variant of chaos, less popular, known as complexity theory. And this particular book I read in the 1990s, I believe, late 90s, and it absolutely blew me away, by M. Mitchell Waldrop, Complexity, the Emerging Science at the Edge of Order and Chaos. And notice that he's got a sand dune there. Well, the sand pile is very important in this book. So here's M. Mitchell Waldrop. Now this book has done very well. It keeps getting republished with different covers. Here he wrote a new afterword in this version. Here's another version of the book, the Emerging Science at the Edge of Order and Chaos. Okay, now what do we get in this book? The bottom line is that humanity is part of something that they call a complex adaptive system. Now in a complex adaptive system, you have multiple agents who can interact where they have their own free will. Now what he talks about in the book is that they built these little systems into a computer simulation where individual pixels were built in such a way that they had free will, they could move around with a very simple set of rules, and they could interact with each other. And what really amazed them was that life started to form in the computer. They believed it was life because the pixels would start to group together into these little snakes, and the snakes would go around and they would explore, they would find other things, they would get bigger, they would, absorb other pixels, and they had all the basic behaviors of life. But the most impressive work they did was with supercomputer sand pile simulations. Now, here's another version of the cover, and we're going to talk about that sand pile stuff in just a second. I mentioned all of this back in my original 2007 article. This is the first time I came out against the Illuminati. It's called The Revealing. It's very historic now. And February 26, 2007, this is when I took all the knowledge I'd gathered over the last 15 years and finally started to go public, because I knew these people were going to try to do this. The Revealing is where they reveal that they're Luciferians and they try to take over the planet. So here's what I say here. And actually, let's go back to the camera and then I'll read that in a minute. So we got to talk about the sand pile. This is very important, the sand pile simulation. Okay, so what happened is that these complexity theory scientists took a supercomputer and created a situation where you have an hourglass that's simulated inside a computer. They have individual particles that are falling down from one common point, and then they're forming a pile. What makes this very different than a typical computer program is that in this case it's a supercomputer, and they're tracking the exact pressure and direction of pressure on every single sand particle in the entire sand pile. They know exactly how much stress it's got, where it wants to move, what it wants to do, and they track this as the pile keeps forming. Now, here's what's so interesting. As the system reaches peak instability, the weird godlike rules of chaos theory, which they call complexity theory in this case, the weird rules of complexity theory kick in. As the system reaches peak instability, as it becomes unstable, this is the sand pile, it's going to have an avalanche. There's going to be an avalanche in the sand pile. That would be the equivalent of like a global economic crash, okay, which is what we're seeing now. But again, it's a complex adaptive system. Each particle has its own freedom of movement within reason. What we see is that before the avalanche takes place on the sand pile, when they're looking at these sand particles, something very fascinating happens. You can no longer tell where any one particle is going to go. You can no longer tell which direction it's going to travel in, and you can no longer tell how fast it's going to travel. Everything gets into a state of chaos, but chaos is order in this new system, chaos theory, okay? So everything goes into this weird state where it's all in flux and you can't predict anything, and then there's an avalanche. But the avalanche takes the sand pile and simply forms it higher up. You get another sand pile that's higher and more organized. It's more complex. It has greater complexity. The system can only evolve. As the sand keeps falling, as the strain goes on the system, it turns into another perfect pile of sand. And that pile keeps building. And then eventually it destabilizes again. There's another avalanche, and it immediately becomes even more organized. And what's even more outrageous than that is that within these supercomputer simulations, they found out that the whole entire structure of the reorganization, which in this case would be the global economy, could literally formulate around a single particle. In other words, the behavior of one single grain of sand in the entire sand pile. The behavior of one grain of sand can determine how it restructures into a higher level of order. And that person could be you. You could be the person who actually changes the whole sand pile, who changes the planet and makes sure that this thing doesn't fall into chaos. Right now, people are still getting their food, the system has reorganized, and it's in a higher level of order, relatively speaking. But that's just the beginning of what's going to happen. So with all of what I just said, I want to read from you now from the original article in 2007 where I analyzed and discussed this scientific result. In scientific terms, this sudden change of shape causes the sand pile to reorganize into a higher level of order. When we apply this to real-world systems like a global economy where each of the agents can exchange information and money, the results are clear. A global economic collapse is simply not possible. Our systems are far too interconnected and chaos theory really works. All that can happen when the system destabilizes is a temporary avalanche of disruption. A new system then quickly arises. That's exactly what's happening now. And this is one of the most important things the supercomputer simulations saw. The outcome cannot be controlled. Not by anyone. Not by the cabal. Not by the alliance. It's just going to be an outcome that nobody can really control exactly what's going to happen. All we do know, based on the supercomputer simulations, is that it will be better and more organized than the previous system was. And the science shows that even a single agent within the system can become the focal point for the new change. Well, this is very, very exciting. And I want to read you a little bit from a scientific article, complexity.orcon.net.newzealand.intro.html, just so you can get a sense that I didn't make this up, and you can read from somebody who talks about this from a scientific basis. A complex adaptive system is a complex system, like the economy, that has the ability to not only respond to its outside environment, but can adapt to become more efficient within its given environment. That is what's happening to us now. If we get free energy and anti-gravity, it's going to be awesome. That means the system can learn. All forms of life are complex adaptive systems. Our economy is learning, and it's going to turn into something more evolved now. Plants grow towards the light, animals seek out food, and humans work to develop their careers to give themselves better advantages and better income than other people around them. That's normal. Complex adaptive systems are formed by a number, usually large, of individual autonomous agents interacting intensely together, like human beings forming the global economy. This creates complex, nonlinear interactions that allow the emergence of new properties for the system that could not have been predicted beforehand. Again, there it is. You cannot predict the outcome. That's very important. The new patterns are often system-wide, in this case the global economy. When human beings get together, they form cultures and languages. These are additional examples of complex adaptive systems in action. So as painful as this process is, I do believe that we will get true freedom and full disclosure, and part of that is because, as we were talking about last time, it appears that the good guys now have access to Project Looking Glass technology. They mentioned this in the QAnon stuff. So there again, the simple version, the fast version is you have a barrel of water and you shield it off from electromagnetic energy. This is a weird technology that apparently came from Atlantis. You shoot argon gas in there, and then if a person walks up to this thing, and again, those posts, the white posts, are taller than a human being, there's this big, big amber area, and whatever you're thinking about in the future can be seen, and they film it, and they study it, and that's how they tell what probability vortexes we're going to see in our future. And I also talked last time about this artificial Stargate, which is next to a pyramid. So where the word gate is in the top photo there, that word gate is literally on one of the old Egyptian pyramids, okay? And it's near Abydos, so this is in Egypt. Now the Egyptian pyramids are built on this weird global energy grid. So this was the testimony of Dan Burrish, and he gave you the coordinates exactly where it is in the top left. So heavily armed Spec 4, those are soldiers, camera and audio stands, pylon. The pylons are around this device. There's a gate and a ring. So again, here's the actual picture that he drew of this Stargate. Now, what you're seeing there, again, is there's 3 pylons. Let's go back one more just to... So you got these 3 pylons, okay? And then you see what looks like gears around them. Those gears are not physical things. They are somehow energetic structures that you physically see. But the point is you have a triangle of them. There's a triangular area of these 3 pylons. And then in between where you have the 2 red discs there, you have one of these barrels of water. And you have to zap it with electromagnetic energy again. And then what does it do? It creates this slate gray ring. You can't see anything but the slate gray color. But yet when you walk through it, you will travel to another place. And then you also notice there, he has those little canisters at the bottom. Those are argon gas canisters because the whole technology requires argon gas to work. Argon is very useful for what we call charge clusters. We'll get into that in another talk. So again, he says here, area containing 3 rings on a gyro-driver device. I already showed you that before. And then there's the 2 red discs in between that apparently help to stabilize this. And then he said that you walk through an area of strange perception. It's like you're hallucinating. Things get very strange. The other weird thing, as I said before, is that the barrel can be tilted. And so if you have the barrel tilted upright like you see at the top, you get the looking glass configuration where you can look into the future but you can't go through it. If you tilt the barrel relative to Earth's gravitational field, you get this slate gray ring, which you see more towards the bottom, and then it works as a Stargate. Now, there's a whole lot of stuff that I could talk about with this. This really, really blew me away when Dan Burrish showed me this because I had already determined that there was a global energetic grid and that this grid is very, very significant. So I want you to look at this closely. Notice that he's got a node number like node 42. It says swivel point 42, and then there's other things there. But this is the best he could remember of a flip book that he saw one of the military guys holding on to while they were using this Stargate. So I want you to look at that geometry carefully for a minute, and I want you to see that there's these pentagons, which that's called a dodecahedron, and then there's also these other lines that connect it, which would be the icosahedron. Now, I have talked about the work of Dr. he's not a doctor, Ivan T. Sanderson, who was a researcher of paranormal subjects. And Ivan Sanderson started to investigate the disappearance of ships and planes on Earth. And what he found was that if he took a pushpin and put in a place where a sailing ship or a flying plane vanished mysteriously, where there's no oil slick, there's no flotsam on the water, there's no sign of anybody going anywhere, they just simply disappeared, he found that there were these 10 places around the Earth where that was happening. Then he found out that you could add the North and the South Pole and you'd get 12. Now what's so weird is that these 12 points were equidistant from one another, which means that you can play connect the dots and get a simple geometric pattern of 20 triangles on a spherical surface called an icosahedron, okay? Well, then the Russian scientists in 1971 or thereabouts, there was 3 scientists, Goncharov, Morozov, and Makarov, and they discovered that you could turn the icosahedron inside out and form a dodecahedron. And then you get an icosadodeca grid. Now, let's go back to the slide for a minute. What Burish was saying that he saw here is the icosadodeca grid. That is exactly what it looks like. And remember, each of those red points that you see where the red dots are, those are the Bermuda Triangle type of points where all the planes and ships are disappearing. So this is a natural Stargate system. It's a natural system that works off of consciousness. If you have the right consciousness, apparently you could use this to travel. We can go back to camera now. Now, the other thing that's so amazing about this icosadodeca grid, the same grid you just saw in that picture, the Russian scientists discovered that all 3,300 of the pyramids and stone monuments and standing stones and obelisks and dolmens and menhirs and stone circles and pyramids and pagodas and temples, 3,300 of them, virtually all of the megalithic sites on Earth, are located right on one of these grid lines. So I have since speculated that whatever energy this grid is creating is very important to the use of anti-gravity. That those stones that were used to build these pyramids and so forth were levitated because of the properties of this energetic grid. And if you actually look at the structure of the Earth, you find that this same grid shows you where the mid-Atlantic ridge is in the Atlantic Ocean, the perfect position of these volcanic mountain ranges that are in straight lines is right where the grid is supposed to be. So the Earth's physical volcanic behavior does neatly correlate and actually shows you the pattern. This is a physical shape in the Earth. The Law of One talks about this. All that is in the new book, and all that is coming up in my class, The Great Awakening. Okay? But you were asking about this ancient Stargate system, and so if you want to join my class, The Great Awakening, there is a link you can click on right below this video, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as we go on. But I will never have blown your mind the way I will in this. We're going to get very spiritual, very deep, because I do believe we have a way to get through this thing without earth changes. I believe that this planetary shutdown, when nobody's dying that much, is the opportunity for us to get the fine, strong moment of inspiration. And so what I want to do is to help to train you to be as intuitive as possible, to understand how to download your information, how to understand the information your higher self is giving you, the training that you need to have, all those things to be able to help activate this path. That is what I'm offering. It's the best that I have to offer. It is a mystery school because we can't just put this stuff out online. It's high-octane teachings, not for everybody, but there is a little bit of an initiation to get in, which is the money. It's not that bad. And again, we're going to be getting the $1,200 checks, and we're going to be getting this global financial reset. So I really don't see this as any kind of end-of-the-world thing. Now, when you go through a Stargate like the one that I showed you the image of, that is a jarring frickin' ride. That's called an ancient Stargate, okay? And there's different types. The one that I showed you is one type. There is another type that is simply a ring, and those also exist, okay? It's not just that type. That's one quirky way to do it. But the point is, when you go inside that thing, it's a very jarring wormhole ride. You actually experience a ride through wormholes. Now, apparently, the bad guys, the Draco Reptilians, built out a Stargate system with these very large spherical craft that they built and placed out in space. And so you have to go through these hopping points when you do a Stargate trip. The end of the movie Contact shows that very neatly with Jodie Foster, where she's traveling and then she stops and she sees this weird architecture and then she starts traveling again. That is apparently how it works. So when you come out the other side of that, if you're not an advanced meditator, which most of us here on Earth are not, you will actually most likely have permanent psychological damage. So the trip itself creates this spiritual activation that a lot of times can make people go crazy if you're not trained for it. The modern Stargate system, though, the ones that they use in the secret space program, that's just an instantaneous trip. You don't have the wormhole ride, you don't go crazy, you just go from point A to point B, boom, and you're done. That's a lot safer and it's a lot more sane. So if you wanted to try the ancient Stargate system like the one I showed you, you could, but it's definitely not recommended. We have much better technology than that now. And hopefully soon after we get through this, we're going to have the full disclosure where we're actually going to get the access to this type of technology, anti-gravity-free energy. Look at how much the Earth is recovering, right? You got dolphins swimming in through the canals of Venice, Italy. Here in LA, I'm hearing all these extra birds now. Wildlife is coming in. And we now have an opportunity to see what happens when the stranglehold that we have on the Earth with the Industrial Revolution the way it is now is removed. Does that mean I want to deindustrialize the planet? No. We need to transition into a healthy society. One of the things that I've been working on for a long time now is the use of this garbage technology. My wife and I both saw it, okay? $3 million a unit, and it processes 1,000 metric tons a day of municipal solid waste. You can literally run through all the garbage that comes out of somebody's household through these machines, and the only thing that they produce on the other end is water and a fuel that we can use to fuel our machines as we're transitioning over to free energy, okay? We can literally solve the garbage crisis. This is real. I know the guys who are doing it. I've been to their lab. I've put my hands on their machine. I've crunched the numbers, and for the price of the bailouts that we're doing, we could also bail ourselves out of the garbage crisis, meaning we have no net garbage output. We are at a zero output. All stuff becomes recyclable. You don't need to throw different recycle bin anymore unless we want to recycle certain materials. You can throw them all in the garbage. You throw them in this thing, and you get water and fuel out. And without as much investment as you think, we could transfer everybody over to this, and then the system pays for itself within 3 years just because of the fuel it's generating. So you get return on investment after 3 years. And with the funding sources that we need to have in place, we already have ways of getting that. And I am involved in a company that is working on that right now. I'm not going to make more announcements until we get financed, but we are very, very, very close. So I'm hoping to be able to announce that very soon. But our company is also working on an anti-gravity technique that will work. And our ultimate goal is that when we get principal financing, we'll have a working prototype in 1 year, and then we'll have operational, widespread hover cars available for you to buy at an affordable price within 4 years. You can have it in your garage. You don't need to pollute the planet, and you can travel where you need to go with a hover car. And they're going to have flight control, which means flight control is some very advanced stuff. Nobody's going to be crashing. Nobody's going to be dying. We've gotten all excited about people dying on Earth right now. Well, imagine if we could stop all the deaths from car crashes. Imagine if we had a non-polluting technology. All of this is part of what full disclosure is going to give us. And the secret to how we get there right now is through a mass global meditation. Now, I'm seeing that right now we have over 35,600 people on this live stream, which is even better than before. That's 10,000 more than we had last time. Now, the meditation effect, or what used to be called the Maharishi effect, we can't really call it the Maharishi effect because if you hear about what happened with the Beatles and Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, it wasn't too good, okay? And we can't let this one guy claim the meditation effect. I'm sorry, we're calling it the meditation effect. Anyway, I still give him credit for doing this. 7,000 people, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi was getting these transcendental meditation gatherings together. 7,000 people got together, they meditated under one roof, and there was a 72% reduction in crime, fatalities, war, terrorism around the world off of 7,000 people. Now think about it, we have 35,000. That's 500% more than what caused a 72% reduction. So our last meditation had a stunning effect. Check this out, folks. This is really true. This is what we did. This is the electromagnetic behavior of the Earth in its Schumann resonance. And what you're seeing here, look at the date, it says 22/03/2020. That was March 22nd, which is when we did the meditation. And then at the bottom axis there, okay, so first of all, on the y-axis going from the top down, you have the Schumann frequency. So as you can see, there are harmonics of this frequency. The main one, if you look on the far left there, that's your base rate of the Schumann resonance of 7.8 hertz. We know that. It's very normally there. Now, normally the Earth doesn't do this. You don't get these surges. It's just going to be that line and then some other smaller lines, but the main line around 7.8 hertz. We'll check out what happened as we do our meditation, folks. You see all that white? You see the Earth's Schumann resonance literally going into overdrive, that between the hours of 18, 19, 20, and 21 there, and even a little bit farther, that we have the Schumann resonance going white hot and shooting up to like 40, and even the white area is up at like 30. That is, I think, and I don't want to brag because we don't really know, okay, but I think that might be the most spectacular Schumann resonance performance that any global meditation has ever had. And now we have 10,000 more than we did last time. So that makes it even better. So I don't know about you, but I'm ready to create that fine, strong moment of inspiration to help spring-load our ascension. So let me get a chair, and we can do this. And yes, Elizabeth, if you want to do crystal bowls, we can set it up in this shot right here. And so I'd like you to get both feet flat on the floor. Take a nice deep breath. I'm going to get where the focal length is right, because it's very precise stuff here, or else I'm going to look all blurry. Get a drink of water. So just start to take some nice deep breaths now. And Elizabeth is going to play some singing bowls for you. I guess you're not really in the shot there. Where would you have to be? You could be over here, though. You could kind of be back here, and then people would see you. You want to be seen. Or maybe you don't want to be seen. Elizabeth is a wonderful wife, and one of the things that she does is plays these crystal singing bowls. And so this is going to give us some great accompaniment as we do this. This stuff really works, okay? You don't have to believe it, but if you try it, you might be surprised, because look at what we did last time. We'll get that graph. We'll see what we can do here. Let's see if we can spike the grid once again. All right. Take a nice deep breath. And just let it go. And then take another nice deep breath. Close your eyes. And let it go. Imagine all 35,000 of us becoming more and more relaxed, together, as a group. Just let yourself breathe. Exhaling all tension out of your body. No matter what you do, your eyes are heavier and heavier. Your body is heavier and heavier. But you're just so peaceful as you allow your breathing to continue any way it wants to. Notice how peaceful your mind is getting. Notice the clarity, the lack of confusion, the lack of fear. Isn't that nice? To just be yourself and become so relaxed. Every area of tension or stress in your body is fully relaxing. Almost as if you are being surrounded with white light. And the white light is pure love. And you can allow that love in if you want to. Allow yourself to be worthy, to be a true child of the one infinite Creator. You are worthy of every kindness. You are worthy of love. You are worthy of happiness and peace. You are worthy of financial prosperity. You are worthy of intelligence and positive decisions. You are worthy of respect. You are worthy of patience, compassion. And you are so deeply relaxed. You're going deeper and deeper and deeper into a state of pure relaxation. And I would now like for you to imagine the index fingertip of your right hand. I'd like you to focus on the index fingertip of your right hand. And I'm going to ask you to lift that finger, not yet, because you're so relaxed. But I'd like you to think about that finger, and I'd like you to think about how hard it is to lift that finger. The enormous weight that is on your right index finger, how hard it is to raise that finger, how difficult it is to raise that finger. And I want you to try to raise that finger now, very slowly. Crank up your finger, crank it up slowly, slowly. It's very difficult to raise your finger. Crank it up a little bit more, and let it go. As you let your finger drop, I want you to imagine that you are plunging into a beautiful, deep, blue ocean of pure peace. You splash in and you go deeper and deeper and deeper. Your index finger can be used as an anchor for you. And you can find that as your finger drops, you feel the water splash. You feel yourself splash into the water. Now I'd like you to raise that finger again, raise it up, feel the difficulty, all the tension, all the strain. Raise that finger, get it up there, raise it, and let it go. And be in the water. And as you drop that finger and you go into the water, you are becoming ever more perfectly and deeply relaxed. And you are deep in the blue, deep in the water. Such peace, And now, one last time, crank up that finger slowly, raise it up, all the judgment, all the anger, all the fear, the resentment, the repression. Raise that finger up, raise it, crank it up higher, 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 and let it go. And become ever more deeply relaxed. Ever more deeply relaxed in this beautiful ocean of life and consciousness. And you start to notice that you are one with the water, that you feel currents moving through your body, rippling sensations, shifting and drifting, portals to other realities from the earth opening up, stargates that can take you on a journey into infinity, the great beyond to explore. Imagine the earth. Imagine the earth as a living being. You can access it through these deep blue waters that way. Imagine the fear the earth has had, not knowing if we would blow it up, if we would poison it beyond repair, and worrying about us. Will we learn to love? Will we learn to understand one another? Will we learn peace? Will we free the technologies that clean our Mother and Father Earth? Imagine the Earth's downright terror of us. We just march along in our little lives. We're not paying attention. And be grateful now that you can resonate with the earth. And as you become even more deeply relaxed, imagine that you are the earth. Imagine yourself as this blue watery orb. And let's give yourself some credit. You've been through a lot. And now you have an opportunity. Now you have an opportunity for great truths to be revealed to everyone, for a planetary awakening. And you're just so relaxed. As you embrace yourself as the earth, sending love to your oceans, sending love to your land, sending love to your skies, imagining clean alternative technology, so we never have to go back to the way it was. We never have to choke our rivers, pollute our oceans, poison our land, spray our skies. We can eat healthily the right combinations of foods so that we live in symbiosis and all is well. And we treat each other with respect, compassion, love, understanding, patience, long-suffering, kindness, curiosity, open-mindedness, freedom, and of course, deep and abiding compassion. We learn that there was a group that was trying to turn us against one another. And they had their time, and now their time has passed. We don't hate them, we just want them to stop what they were doing and let this evolution take place. And I ask you now, I invite you now to envision the earth waking up so that we don't have a difficult birth. We don't need these earth changes. We don't need
tsunamis, tidal waves, catastrophic pole shift, that it all happens in a way where everyone gets to participate in a fine, strong moment of inspiration. We're smiling, we're happy, there's light on our faces as the world becomes a paradise and we all learn to respect one another and love one another. And we send that energy to everyone, to all beings, and to the earth, seeking only that we may make this into a true paradise, where everyone is happy, everyone has enough food, everyone has enough water, everyone has a nice house, everyone has a positive community of like-minded individuals that they can share time with. And we're not stuck living in a prison. We are liberated, we are pure, we are whole. Let yourself breathe deeply. Breathe in this light of ascension. Breathe in this vision of that single, fine, strong moment of inspiration, where we glide through this process without the need for turbulence, telling us we have to be more loving. We get the lesson now. We understand. And we don't need the earth changes. We just don't. For you love the earth so much. You're sending love to the earth. You love this being. You want it to be healthy. You want it to be safe. You will do your part to keep the earth safe, because that is yourself. You will keep other people safe because they are yourself. Uplift, support, encourage, intertwine, and live the promise of the golden age, where we treat each other with much more compassion and much greater love. Take this energy and imagine all coronavirus being rewritten to be a benign and not dangerous substance. Rewrite that molecule. Take its lethality away. Send your love and your support to all those healthcare workers, making sure that everyone gets the care they need within reason, that those emergency facilities are set up if needed, that everyone is getting respirators and ventilator masks, that everyone has the supplies they need. Bless our militaries as they provide the care that is necessary, the supplies, the logistics. And let us think about the possibility of the 3 days without telephone or internet. Surround these soldiers with love and support as they do this most dangerous of all missions, to attempt to arrest all of the worst offenders that have been destroying this beautiful planet in 3 days. Those who have not already surrendered and made deals, that is. Send light to those soldiers, envision them kicking in the doors, going in there and doing this peacefully without gunfire, arresting people, bringing them out in handcuffs, so that they may have a fair trial. All done through due process of law, sealed indictments, all legal. We ask for clemency. We ask that heroes can come forward, that whistleblowers can be given honor for doing the right thing to save the planet. That we will not treat them all like villains, but those who wish to help us and do something good will be revered and honored for their sacrifice and their bravery. Send those would-be whistleblowers your love and your support. Strengthen them in their journey towards the truth, because this is something we can all agree on. We live here, and we need to make this planet a paradise for everyone. Send this energy to your family members, to those you love. And lastly, send it to yourself. Give yourself the gift of your love. You might not always like what you see in the mirror. There might be aspects of your personality that cause you to feel shame. Others might have told you you're not good enough, you're not strong enough, you're not smart enough, you're not thin enough, you're not young enough, you're not intelligent enough. Whatever all that is, just know now that when someone is speaking to you with such hatred and unkindness, they are not seeing the truth. They don't see you like I do, like we do, as a being of infinite worth, a perfect manifestation of pure love. You can be that because that is what you are. All you have to do is claim what already exists. Be present with the truth of what you are. So the next time someone looks at you the wrong way or speaks to you with unkindness, you understand that they are confused. They simply don't see reality. They don't see the love that we all share. They don't see the divinity that we all are. They exist in a relatively confused state. And if they cannot see beyond it, then you have the right to erect healthy boundaries and say no. You don't need to be obligated to these people. You don't need to do whatever they ask. And we as a planet stand today and we say no. We say no to the Illuminati. We say no to the New World Order. We say no to the globalists, to the deep state. We thank you for the things you have done. You've given us movies through Hollywood. Even with your agenda woven into them, many of them were still very entertaining. You've built our civilization. You've industrialized. You've given us a financial system that's useful under the right circumstances. You've given us governments and laws. It's not that all of this needs to be thrown away. We're just ready to have it serve the greater good of humanity. Serve the greater good of each individual as part of a collective. We can still seek our own prosperity, have ambition. We're not stuck in some communist prison where everybody gets paid exactly the same. Individual ambition to inspire others, to be noteworthy, all of that is great. And we envision a future where we have hover cars, where we no longer need roads. They turn into gardens. Nothing needs ever drive on the surface again. We envision a world of clean technology, without fear, without hunger, without starvation, without poverty. We envision a world that is clean and fresh, the air, the oceans, the streams, the rivers, free of pollution. We have the ability to do that. We can do that together. And most of all, the freedom from hatred. We just allow love to happen. We don't need to control others anymore. We don't need to manipulate others anymore. We don't need to play games to try to get more money, to try to lie and cheat and steal. We simply embrace one another in love. Send this energy to the earth and let us co-create the positive future where we don't need earth changes to learn these lessons. And so it is. And now I'd like you to slowly come back to the room. Wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes. Open your eyes. Well, that was fun. I guess I went 2 hours and 20 minutes or something. So thankfully, not the end of the world. Or what? Let's see, 4 to 5, 5 to 6, 6 to, I guess it's 3 hours and something. But whatever, okay. It was long, but we got time. So last thing I'd like to do, now that we've done that meditation, is again tell you, when the phone goes down, don't freak out. It's all going to be good. I would ask you to keep praying for the Alliance. Keep praying for our brave soldiers. Let me go back to the tight shot here. I'd ask you to keep praying for these brave heroes who are doing this for us now. This is a very, very important mission. You can help them quite a bit that way, and not freaking out when the internet goes down, the phone goes down. It's temporary. And my gosh, we are so close. Can you feel the excitement? I know I can. Last, before we go, I'd like to again describe to you this Great Awakening course that we're doing. This is a very significant, important thing that we need you to have do for us. It is a way to help us with critically needed funds, and it also, more importantly, is a masterclass teaching you how to access the intelligent infinity, the beings that can help you, so that you get the most precise information for how you can best help the planet and be that agent of change, that one particle of sand that can rearrange the whole system into a higher level of order. This is what I feel to be the most high-octane teachings I can give you, the best stuff. We have an amazing sequence in there about the Great Pyramid and how impossible its construction is, and I go into the Great Pyramid timeline. You're going to see 9/11 in the Great Pyramid timeline. I'm going to show you how this works. The 2008 economic collapse. The Edward Snowden revelations of 2013 appear to be in there. And we have an exact time window of what is going to happen in our future. The ascension prophecies are in the Great Pyramid as well. The pyramid timeline I've known about since my work started in 1995, but I've never dared to try to really get into it before. I did it in this book. We're going to do it in this class. It will blow you away when you see how precise this timeline is, that it has Christian elements to it as well. It's very interesting. The pyramid does appear to be a Christian monument that got hijacked by the negative. We'll talk all about that. We're going to talk about how to access and use your dreams, how to understand the language of your dreams. This is very important because if you can remember your dreams, you're getting a firewalled message from your higher self. We're going to talk about some stunning correlations between what happened to Corey Goode, what's in the Law of One, and other sources that I'm bringing in. We have a whole tasting menu of what can happen with Ascension, some very, very intriguing insights into the role of the planetary transfer process, how people go from planet to planet, how that happens, the history that's given in the Law of One. This is a truly massive download. I'm going to be giving you prophecy information that I already had that's come true, the prophecies that have yet to come true. It is really what I feel to be the best that I have to offer. We're going to be talking more about it, and there is a website. So if you click down here, the bottom of the screen, there's a link there. You can go to that website. We have an intro video that's free that you can watch. All you have to do is give us your email address. You don't have to pay for anything to watch that video, and I'll give you more information about it. But it's something that I think will really help you out, and it helps us as well. But again, I'm not just here to sell a class, although it's very helpful if you do that. I will continue to be doing videos like this. I will continue to be trying to provide as much leadership and strength as I can as we're going through this process. This is unprecedented, but I hope that now I have helped to greatly allay your fears. I want to thank you for watching, and my wife Elizabeth also thanks you. Did you want to say anything real quick? You can kind of talk into my crazy scratchy microphone here.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for watching, and we hope you enjoyed the meditation.
Let's go into this camera here.
Hope you could hear the crystal bowls a little bit as I was on the floor there.
Yeah, you did a good
And,
job. Let's get over here.
I'll be doing a couple classes, bonus courses in the Great Awakening School, and one will be on power animals, and
You can look over there.
one will be on sacred boundaries, and then also on protection ceremonies. So bringing some of the work that I do in my Priestess Path courses into this as a bonus.
Yeah, and a lot of people had asked last time, let's go back. Yeah, a lot of people had asked last time for more of Elizabeth.
So in this case, you are going to get both of us. And she's got some really great material. And this is not, by the way, going to cut in with the time that I did last time. She's got her own bonus slots, and I'm still going to be Mr. 4 hours at a shot every Sunday. So, well, it might not be 4 hours every time, but it'll be long because I like to talk. Anyway, we both thank you for sharing this meditation with us. Let's hope it does the job. And let's look forward to the 3 days without phone or internet, because this is, believe it or not, a very good thing. And this is David and Elizabeth Wilcock. We thank you, and we'll see you next time.